Dispatcher locally for the Carolinas.
This is the Rob Brown Show.
Yeah. Only on ESPN.
ESPN Upstate.
And away we go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the big shows on the radio. This is ESPN Upstate. Hello, Upstate South Carolina. Hello, world. It is great to be with you again. I am Rob Brown, the host of the radio broadcast, my co-host and executive producer today, in charge of the broadcast on the ones and twos. The great one, Diddy, is here. That he takes Lonzo's moniker for one more day, filling in for us this week as the Zoe is out on vacation. What's happening, big fella?
Not too much. 1 day from Turkey Day.
Love it. Love it.
And 3 days from Palmetto Bowl?
Where does Thanksgiving rank on the holiday power rankings for you?
I don't know, man. It's rough because I do love food.
Yeah,
so it's very high up because of the food. It has to go behind Christmas overall just because of what Christmas is as far as family and everything else. Plus, being from my family, that's the best dinner. Christmas dinner always dwarfs Thanksgiving dinner because my mom's gnocchi is the greatest thing on this planet. Okay. So that always dwarfs it. I think it'd be like maybe third or fourth. It would make the playoff, but have to kind of sneak in late. Because birthday kind of is a holiday as well, right? And that one's good.
Giving your own birthday.
Well, my birthday is.
It absolutely is. Then it absolutely is. I really, I saw somebody earlier today. Mike Golick Jr. tweeted out, "Send me your hottest Thanksgiving take," right? And one of my buddies on Twitter said, "Thanksgiving is a third tier holiday that falls in between two GOAT level holidays of Halloween and Christmas." And I realized he's right.
That is fair.
He's right.
Because the candy is also better on both of those.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no candy for Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. Plus, you get the same size dinner for Christmas, but also more people show up and gifts. So that's that. I think Christmas is the GOAT holiday.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. I'm a big Halloween guy myself. I love Halloween. It's probably my favorite holiday that's not Christmas. I'll be real with you. I think 4th of July ranks higher than Thanksgiving, to be honest with you.
For the fun factor.
Yeah, for the fun factor. And the fact that it's nice and hot and you can go outside by the beach and drink a beer.
Go on the boat.
Yeah. 4th of July ranks up there. Hell, man, I think it's probably, if it's in the top 4 playoff, it's at 4.
Yeah.
If it's there at all.
And I'm going to say Easter's probably Michigan at 5 trying to get in.
I don't hate it.
Because, the candy for Easter is very underrated when you're a candy head.
Don't disagree.
And then you still kind of get a Christmas-ish dinner for that, and it's a multiple day holiday when you grow up Catholic because you're going to have different meals throughout that weekend, like Good Friday, and then you go into Saturday, and then Sunday's Easter, and then it's like a whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of works out, too.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd say that's 5 with Thanksgiving at 4 because the football on Thanksgiving's fun. And even though there's really bad games this year, I still always look forward to spending all day watching the NFL on Thanksgiving.
And that's why we play the games.
That's
folks.
right.
That's why we play the games. We're going to get to our lunch breakdown in just a second, but I do want to start by saying this. Yesterday, the Odyssey Upstate family found out that we have lost one of our own, Mr. Robert Martin. And for those of you who watch on the stream, for those of you that check in with us on video and sometimes on the air, Robert. Robert was our they say our chief IT guy, but he was so much more than that. Robert had some health issues, and yesterday he passed away surrounded by his friends and loved ones. And, you never really know what to say in a situation like this, despite the fact that, that's kind of our job is to know what to say in any situation. What I can tell you about Robert was that of every person in the building, and this is, I think, Diddy, you said yesterday about the fact that, it always kind of feels like this is the first thing people go to when they lose someone close to them. But this time it's as sincere as ever before. The guy was the nicest guy in the building.
He really was.
Robert was the nicest guy in the building. When I got here and I got this job, the first time I came on the air, when I got off the air, I went back into the studio or back into my office. I shared with Lonzo. And at this point, my office was basically the remnants of the host that had that office before me.
Yeah.
And so the computer was 50 years old, and I had a monitor that was like the same monitor in my elementary school classroom in the early 90s. It was just not a great setup. And this is the first day I'm in the building, first day I'm in the office. And here comes this nice old guy around the corner, and he introduces himself, and he says, whatever you need, I got you. And I said, well, man, I appreciate that. I don't like to come in and just start asking for stuff. I don't want to be a diva. And he said, man, it's what we do, is make sure you guys are good to go. And he helped alongside with Tony and Chris, who I know have got to be hurting today. They worked lockstep with Robert every single day. They went there and he made sure that everything I have needed since I got here, when we started getting the streaming set up and I had all these questions, how do I do this? How do I set up that? Robert said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. When we were trying to get stuff going, working from home, those first couple of weeks after the lockdowns where everybody started doing their shows from the house, there were obviously problems. I mean, we went from 14 years of working in a studio to, oh, by the way, now you got to build a whole studio in your house. And I had problems. And Robert was the guy that I called. And I can't tell you the number of times that I'd call Robert and say, hey, man, I got this problem. And he'd go, that's not really in my field. That's not really what I do, but hang on. And then he'd come see me 10 minutes later and go, okay, here's a solution. I figured it out for you, right? This dude, but on top of being one of the most fabulous coworkers I've ever had in my life, the guy was just a genuinely nice guy. Every time you'd pass Robert Martin in the hallways and say, Mr. Robert, what's up, buddy? It was always a, how are you? How's it going? And it wasn't just that, a lot of us, we have the old small talk. Hey, how's the weather? It's cold outside. All right, well, have a good day. No, Robert genuinely cared, man. He'd be like, hey, what's going on? Everything good in the studio? Can I help you with anything? What can I be doing for you? There was never a point where he wasn't looking to help somebody get done whatever they needed done for them to be successful. I mean, that was his whole thing. The guy was a spectacular human being. He was one of the nicest people in the world. I mean, genuinely. And I know it's like every time somebody passes away, you got to line out the door, people going, oh, he's the nicest guy. Yeah. And you've met some of these people and you're like, was he though? Was he though? Really? I've interacted with this guy. I don't think that's correct. If you can find me a single person in his entire sphere of influence that had a negative thing to say about Robert, I'll give you my next 5 paychecks. You can't do it. All right. You can't do it. The dude was a genuinely good human being. He was a fantastic coworker, but he was a better person. And I'm struggling for things to say because I don't know how to communicate to people how you are very fortunate in your life. And I know I've only been here a year and a half. Robert's been here for years and years and years. And there are people with far more history with Robert than I had. In the year and a half that I have been here, I can't think of a person that if I had to send somebody from this building, and I don't mean this is disrespectful to anybody else, this is a compliment to him. If I had to send one person out to represent me, to be like, this is the guy that represents Rob and the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate and the Odyssey family, it'd have been Robert. And it wouldn't have taken me a second thought. It'd have been Robert Martin. He was quiet. He was to himself. But boy, howdy, if you said hi to him, he cared about what you had to say. If you needed something from him, he cared that it got done. The dude was a fabulous person. And I will tell you sincerely, the office is a little more empty today. He's been out for a handful of weeks, taking care of some health issues and whatnot. But, like 2 or 3 days after he wasn't here, I went down the hall and I was like, hey, where's Robert? Is he on vacation? Because, I couldn't tell you. And this is going to sound disrespectful and it's not meant to be. There's, 30 people that work upstairs in this building, right? There's 30 people up here. And outside the ones that I interact with on a daily basis, Diesel, Lonzo, Big Mark, Stoneman. Outside of those 4, I couldn't tell you who has missed how many days in a row outside of this building, with the exception of Mr. Robert. With the exception of Mr. Robert, who, again, you'd walk down the hall, you'd walk down, and his office is in the hallway that you have to walk down to get from the on-air side over to the admin side. And if that guy's door was open and you popped your door in to say hi, he would push the keyboard back. How you doing, man? How are you? What's happening? How's your family? How's this? How's that? He was just a spectacular guy. and he will be greatly missed, not just in the office, but as part of our family. Fantastic human being.
Yeah, and it's really it's hard to add really anything to all of that, to be perfectly honest, because it's a devastating loss for all of us. Obviously, our thoughts, prayers, love, everything we can send to his family, Bonnie, his wife, everybody else. Just absolutely tragic news that we had to get yesterday afternoon. I've worked here 5 years on and off, but mostly through the 5 years overall, and Robert's been here the whole time. Just human being who is the kind of human being we all should be like. That's the kind of person. If you're all that kind of person, maybe people wouldn't be so awful out there to each other, because he was just a genuinely great man, and just devastating, absolutely devastating.
Again, like, it just, I genuinely don't know what to say. The dude was an incredible guy. He will be sorely missed. In fact, we were reminiscing a little bit yesterday. Mark Ryan posted a tribute on his Facebook page to Mr. Robert.
Mm-hmm.
And back in whatever it was, March or April, we had our company get together, the Odyssey get together, because we've done really well. Mm-hmm. And so we all went down to the bowling alley downtown and had kind of a little gathering. And when I walked in, now, again, I had been here just over a year at that point, but because the majority of that year had been spent working from home and we had just kind of started to breach getting back to normal, mm-hmm. I genuinely did not know most of the people I worked with.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know most of the people that I worked with. I had heard names and seen them attached to emails and whatnot, but hadn't really gotten the chance to meet them. And when I walked into the bowling alley, Mr. Robert walked up and introduced me to the bits and pieces of his family that were there. And then I'm kind of looking around because, I know obviously Mark was there and Diesel was there and Big Mark was there and Stoneman. And I know the guys that I work with on a regular basis, but, the folks from the B and the folks from WORD, I hadn't really met these guys. And Robert's sitting there going, oh, yeah, that's so-and-so. Hey, come here. This is Rob Brown. He's our new guy. He's been here a year, but new to the office, etc. As soon as he found out that I was not that I was uncomfortable, because there's really a situation I can't make a party out of.
Fair.
As soon as he found out that I was trying to make sure that I knew everybody, he was the one that was grabbing people and going, "Hey, come over here." And it wasn't like a professional courtesy. It was like it mattered to him. It mattered to him that people knew who I was. It mattered to him that I knew who they were. It mattered to them that I was able to build these relationships so that all of us would be successful together. And that was just him all the time. If he could do anything to help anybody, even if it was outside of his job, there's a lot of people, it's not really my thing, and they'll just kick you up the chain to whoever you need to talk to. Not Robert. Robert will get on that horn and make it happen for you. Just a phenomenal human being. Robert Martin is going to be sorely missed around this radio station, around this building, throughout the Odyssey family. And, our thoughts go out to his family, his loved ones. I can't imagine what they are feeling today. I know that in a moment like this, words don't really help. Words don't really help all that much. But it's the best we have to offer in this role. And I hope that his family and his friends know that, and I think I can speak on behalf of everybody who works in this building, he was without a doubt the single most pleasant, friendly, professional, good guy to work with in this entire building. And that is, and I want it known that there are great people that work in this building. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for great people. When I got here for my audition, one of the first things I did was to kind of scope around the building to see, because you can tell when you walk in a building it's not a great workplace. You can feel it.
Oh yeah.
You can feel it. We have got incredible people that work in this building, from our IT guys, our engineering guys, our administration, our downstairs sales and marketing folks. It's a tremendous family that has been built here. And Robert was in many ways kind of a patriarch of that. The salespeople had problems in the pit. They went to Robert. Yep. The on-air people had problems with tech in the studio. We went to Robert. The admin guys needed stuff to be fixed so that they could do their job. They went to Robert. He was the most kind, pleasant, friendly, professional guy that I have worked with maybe in my 15 years of radio, and he will be sorely missed by every person in this building.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you give that designation as in the building. It might be the greatest man in this business. I don't know if I've experienced somebody as great as him and learned as much from anybody. Spending time, like you said, go to his office. I'd hang out on that couch here and there and just talk, and just a wonderful, wonderful guy.
It was only fitting that in this building, I think there's in an office outside of our downstairs lobby, there's only one couch in this building.
Yeah.
And it's in Robert's office.
Yeah.
And I think it's telling, because if there was a guy, not just on this floor, but in this building, and I'm including every person I work with in this, if there was a person who, when you needed a second to decompress, you just wanted to go sit and fall back into that big couch and talk with for a minute, it was Mr. Robert.
Yep.
The guy was just that guy. He was just that guy. And again, I've been in this business 15 years, and I've worked with a lot of nice guys, and I've worked with a lot of folks who aren't so nice. I've worked with a lot of people who are good people, a lot who aren't. But if I had to put together the list of people that I have worked with, that even in my show, I've been here for less than 2 years of the 15 years I've been doing this business. If I had to put together a list of people that I would say, I want this person on my team, Robert is absolutely at the top.
100%.
I mean, the guy was phenomenal in every aspect as a coworker. And look, Robert was a handful years older than me, right? Like, it's not we're like the same, like Diddy and I are the same generation. So even if we hated each other at work, we could grab a beer after work and we'd be fine. Yeah. Robert and I weren't from the same generation. We weren't from the same background. We weren't from, I mean, there was really not a heck of a lot in common. He's a smart guy who knows things about computers. I taught myself how to turn one on, and that's about the list of my accomplishments. But I'll be dadgummed if you needed something, if you didn't go to that man's office and ask for help, if he didn't drop what he was doing, no matter how important it was, to make sure that you had what you needed to be successful, and he cared about it. He cared about it. And it wasn't like, there's a lot of people that will help you. Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'll help you if you can help me. Not Robert. Robert, in fact, in the year and a half I was here, I don't think he ever asked anything from me. No. With the exception of whatever I needed to do to help him accomplish what I needed done. Yep. Right? Hey, I need you to send me this email with this information, or I need you to bring me this piece of equipment. I don't think in the year and a half I was here, not that I could help, because again, I'm an idiot.
Same.
But there was, I can't think of a time where Robert ever came to me and said, I need this. And I don't think it was because, he thought Rob's incapable. I just thought he went, I'm just going to get this done. And that was the kind of guy he was, just a phenomenal human being. And I will say on behalf of this, and we're going to get back to our sports in a minute, but I felt it important. Robert Martin was not just an impactful part of this family that we have here at Odyssey. Like I said, I think he was kind of in a way the patriarch of it. Listen, my boss, Big Mark, how many times did I walk down the hall and see Hendricks in there talking to Robert about what we needed, or Stoneman, or Nine and Fat Boy from the Rise guys, or me and Mark Ryan. I mean, if you needed something, Robert Martin was the guy to go to. And not only did he help you every time, there was never a complaint.
Nope.
Never a complaint. I think the only complaint I ever got from him was, that's not within my field of duty. And then normally within a handful of minutes, I'd get an email from him going, but I got it done anyway.
Yep. Every time.
Mr. Robert, you were without a doubt one of my favorite people I've ever gotten to work with. Like I said a few minutes ago, if I had to pick one person in this building to send out to represent me in this show, it absolutely would have been him. This building is a little emptier today, and it will stay that way. It will stay that day. Robert Martin was a great man, a great coworker, and a damn fine friend around the building and out of it. And you will be missed, my friend. Rest well. Rest well. All right, let's take a break. Let's come back here in just a minute. We'll do our lunch breakdown, because I will tell you, there's one thing he would tell me. Get it together and do your damn show, young man. Get it together and do your show. So we'll hit the lunch breakdown when we come back. We're going to be busy today. 1 o'clock, David Rhodes, host of the Panther Nation podcast, is going to join us. 1:20, Mark Shelley, voice of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits, will join us. 2 o'clock, Kevin Thomas and John Epps from Moving the Chains. High school semifinals this weekend. They'll break the semifinals down for us, and I've got all kinds of stuff to get to. We will get to all of it when we come back. Rob Denny, you on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate. Oh, 100%. 100%. Robert was that guy, man. He was facts, the nicest guy, not just in the building, but like I said, in 15 years, I've met a lot of nice people, and there are a lot of nice people who still get angry and still show that side of them. Even in the most frustrating times, I don't think I ever saw that side of Robert Martin. I don't think I ever saw that side of him.
Saturday. Clemson football ready to wrap up their regular season. They will do so on Saturday in South Carolina. Download the Score app today. Lightning fast sports alert so you never miss a thing.
I think the texter forgot that there was a World Series game on Halloween night.
Sports apps.
Oh, true.
It was a sports day, sir.
ESPN Upstate is your home for Furman Paladins men's basketball. Every play, every game on ESPN Upstate, 97.7 FM Greenville, 97.1 FM Spartanburg. On your computer, smart speaker, and phone.
Oh, jeez. Well, my friend Biggie in Orlando has now made me aware of something that I'm going to have to make with my Thanksgiving leftovers.
And that
Thanksgiving egg rolls.
Oh, I don't hate that. I love an egg roll.
It's got like turkey stuffing, gravy. It's like a gravy dipping for dipping. It sounds so good. Yeah, I responded to Golik's thing. It was like, basically, like, the meal's the worst part of Thanksgiving. I'd rather just skip to having the meal as leftovers for my Thanksgiving dinner. So I'm going to be fancy and sit there and cut the turkey and have it all set. No, build me an open-faced turkey sandwich, put it in the microwave or in the stove oven, heat it up. I want to go straight from hors d'oeuvres to open-faced turkey sandwiches. I don't need this sit-down fancy crap.
When we do Thanksgiving at my grandma's, we'd move like all the tables into the kitchen. We'd all sit together and eat, but it wasn't like a formal fancy dinner. It was like, just grab whatever plate you find, slop a bunch of food on it, and sit down, shut up, and eat. And then as soon as the game was over, or as soon as the dinner was over, all the dudes moved to the living room to watch football, and we just fall asleep. All of us.
Always. It's nap day.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's ESPN Upstate. Let's, I'll tell you what, Diddy, let's go ahead and do lunch. Why not? Let's go. Do lunch.
This is a very nutritious lunch. All the food groups are represented.
What in the wide world of sports is going on here?
Texter says, totally disagree. Thanksgiving is turkey football. A sports show ranking Thanksgiving lower than Halloween. Are you kidding me? End quote. Well, look.
But seriously, people take these things.
If Halloween fell on a Sunday, then you'd have football on that day.
And let's not forget, Halloween of 2021 was a Braves World Series game night.
Correct.
Therefore, sports night.
Correct.
Halloween was a sports
And on
holiday.
top of that, the only reason, I mean, yeah, they add a couple extra games to it, but do you know what other Thursday has football on it during football season? All of them. They all have football. You get 2 extra NFL games. So don't get me wrong, it's dope, and they usually try to set up some pretty good Thanksgiving Day games. Saints got Buffalo on Thanksgiving night this year. The Saints have kind of become the Saints, Dallas, and Detroit have kind of been the 3 teams that usually have a Thanksgiving Day game.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a big part of it. But I got football on every Thursday. I got college and pro football on
Yeah.
pretty much every Thursday football season. Just because I get 2 extra NFL games doesn't make it better.
And it's not like we weren't listing sports days.
Yeah.
July 4th is one of my favorite baseball days. You can even throw Memorial Day in there, too.
Yeah.
I love those days for baseball. It's 24/7 baseball that day. Opening day should be a holiday. That could be ranked ahead of Thanksgiving for me, personally, as a baseball guy. So, it still has sports. There's always sports.
It's always sports. Item number 1 on the lunch breakdown. Yesterday, we told you that the NFL was staring down 2 huge situations that could end up getting them into trouble and costing them billions of dollars. The first, obviously, the Congress, the House Ways and Means Committee for Regulation and Change, or whatever the title is, was pretty much asking the NFL to turn over all of the documents related to the Dan Snyder investigation, including over 650,000 emails that had been collected in that investigation. The second was that the city of St. Louis and various entities within it were suing the St. Louis Rams for potentially billions of dollars in damages for leaving the city and accusing them of multiple charges of, I don't remember what the charges were because I'm dumb and it was yesterday. It was a long time ago, but
A whole lot of things.
they were looking at potentially $1 billion or more in damages that would have to be paid by either the LA Rams or the entire NFL. I said it could set up to where you have an owner battle similar to the one you had back in the 1990s when Jerry Jones sued the NFL over how NFL distribution from sales revenue, from apparel and merch revenue would be distributed. Well, that threat has been met and turned down now as the 4-year lawsuit against the Rams and the NFL for the team's relocation to LA is coming to an end. According to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, a settlement with the city of St. Louis has been reached. The official announcement expected to be made sometime later today after lawyers officially notify the 32 NFL owners. That settlement set for $790 million worth of damages. The Post-Dispatch reports the settlement does not include an expansion team for St. Louis, which was something the city was hoping for after the Rams left to move to LA. Now, it is unclear as of this point in time how much of the $790 million will be paid by Rams owner Stan Kroenke, although he was previously expected to pay, quote, tens of millions of dollars, end quote, in the suit. Now it's up to hundreds of millions of dollars. We don't know how much he'll be on the hook for and how much the NFL will cover. The lawsuit was filed against Kroenke, the Rams, and the NFL in 2017 after the Rams moved to LA, arguing they had breached their agreement and were misleading throughout the decision to relocate the franchise. Now, why is this surprising and why is it news? It's news, obviously, because there's still the potential that the owners could end up kind of splitting down the middle, Avengers Civil War style, and being asked to pay some of the $790 billion for a decision that was made effectively by Roger Goodell, Stan Kroenke, and some of the owners. But the reason it's interesting is because, especially considering it does not include an agreement for a future expansion team in St. Louis, is because of the fact that everything in this lawsuit for 4 years, every appeal, every challenge has gone the way of the city. All the judges, all the courts were lining up in supporting St. Louis in this story. So the fact that they agreed to a settlement when I think there may have been $500 million more on the table if they fought it out. One, obviously, they're rolling the dice a little because there is the off chance that when it came down to the very final decision that they would have sided with the Rams and maybe St. Louis only gets half of what they got, if not, nothing. But the fact that they had all of this going their way and have decided to settle, especially without an agreement to give them the next expansion team, is a little surprising, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it really is. But then again, in the end, what's the old saying? Greedy makes a hungry puppy, right? So I keep asking for more. That is an old saying. It's from the Pokey Little Puppy, man. Did you not grow up reading books when you were a child? I'm only 1 year older than you. There's no way this is a generational thing. But greedy makes a hungry puppy. You keep wanting more. Eventually, you get none because you keep asking for more. So why play that game with a powerhouse lawyer team that the NFL is going to bring to the table because they hate spending money unless it's to defend themselves or to go after a quarterback? It's another deep-seated issue I have right there. Yeah. But you could have kept asking for more. You could have tried to get this thing over $1 billion and then lost and had nothing. to show for it. Or that's still a pretty hefty chunk of change there, $700+ million. Who actually gets that money, though? That's what I want to know.
It's going to be divvied up between multiple entities within the city of St. Louis. I'm sure some of it will go to there's a name and I can't remember but there's one entity that effectively controls the arena and all of the sports and culture aspects of the city. I'm sure they'll get a chunk of it. I'm sure some of it will be distributed effectively to make up the lost revenue to bars and restaurants around the stadium that lost out on business, et cetera. But we'll find out the details of that later. Now, I agree with what you're saying and I get what you're saying, especially when puppies are involved. I get where you're going with that, Diddy. But my thought was, bro, what you're doing is working, right? Like you're winning this one appeal, one battle at a time. All the chips on your side. At some point, you gotta realize that you've got them on the ropes and keep attacking, right? Yeah. Now, maybe there's a knockout punch at the end and the Rams get off the hook. But when you're talking $400 or $500 million in revenue that could be brought in from that, I don't know if I like that decision. We'll talk more about it later on. Item number 2 on the lunch breakdown. Ordinarily, we don't talk, Diddy, about individual games in the lunch breakdown. It's more for big stories. But my goodness, Gonzaga last night. Yeah. The Zags, the number 1 team in the country, took on the number 2 UCLA Bruins last night at T-Mobile Arena. And the Zags threw it the H down. A 20-point 83-63 win that, frankly, Diddy, wasn't that close. No. Wasn't that close. I don't know if you got to watch any of this.
Some of it. It was back and forth. Had a big soccer match to get mad at and scream at all night. Oh, God. I'm really upset about that.
Orlando City getting smoked 3-1 last night. They're done.
I think they forgot they had a match last night.
I guess.
Oh, my goodness.
The Bulldogs started with a blazing first half that ended with Gonzaga leading by 20, a margin they sustained throughout the second half. And frankly, they kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit late in that game. They probably could have got it up to 30 or better. Gonzaga, I got to tell you at this point, it's ridiculous to say this in a field of 64, 68. It's ridiculous to say this. But I'm going to offer you right now, Diddy, Gonzaga or the field.
Yeah. I think you take Gonzaga. The Zags have to be the team right now. It's like Dayton was 2 years ago if they hadn't got that stolen from them by the shutdown. That team was not losing. And I don't know if this team loses.
Back in April, Gonzaga and UCLA had a Final Four match, right? For the right to go to the national championship. And Jalen Suggs knocked down a buzzer beater in overtime that is going to go down as one of the greatest Final Four moments in all time. I kind of thought maybe we'll get another effort at that. Nope. It was never even close. In fact, I'm sitting on the couch last night. The Madre's in to visit, right? The Madre came up to visit. And I get home last night. I get home last night. I sit on the couch. I turn this game on. And she's like, why are we watching this game? And I'm like, well, it's number 1 and number 2. These are the 2 big dogs in college basketball. And 13 minutes in, my mom goes, one of these dogs needs to be put down. Like, it was bad, dude. UCLA had nothing. Nothing. Jazang couldn't get going. Defensively, they were just getting work. Drew Timme looked like a freaking NBAer last night. Looked like a man amongst boys last night. It was something else.
And we've seen this before, too, when you think, like, if they go through the whole season undefeated and get to the tournament, it's different there. And we've seen, Wichita State went all the way to the end and then choked in the end. But they didn't play teams like UCLA in the regular season and boat race them. This team came out and beat up on number 2, showed them who was boss and the reason why we are the number 1 team, and you better get it together if you want to come after us.
Look, we're 6 games into the season, okay? We're 6 games into the season. There are plenty of teams still finding identities. You're still seeing top 10 teams lose to unranked, and it's not the end of the world. This was a statement. Okay?
Absolutely.
10-point win, you go, all right, UCLA trying to find themselves a little bit. Gonzaga's got pretty good chemistry because it's effectively the same team from last year behind Timme. This was not a good win, and UCLA needs to find itself. This was UCLA got their ass whooped last night, and that's all there is to it. All right, let's take a break. When we come back here in just a moment from right now, we are going to get to item number 3. And this may shock you, but it's the playoff rankings. I know! On a sports show? Stop it. Y'all, the playoff rankings are out. Cincinnati is in. But can they stay there? No, they can't. And I'll tell you why when we come back on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate.
Whew. Well, that's not a good thing. Everson Griffin refusing to leave home.
Have you seen that story?
No.
So last night, 911 got a call. Everson Griffin said that somebody was in his house, had discharged a weapon, and was trying to kill him, right? So police send people over to his house a little while later. They get there. Griffin, in the meantime, goes live on Instagram. You can see the video. And he's in his room, and he's, like, freaking out. And I haven't gotten to watch it with audio yet, but it's like it's him freaking out, and he looks genuinely terrified. So the cops show up. They say they can't find anybody in the house. They can't find any evidence of a gun being fired, right? There's no signs that anybody was in the house. So they've sent in a psychologist to see if he had like a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Sent in a psychologist and have law enforcement in the house with him. They say they have no evidence that anybody has come into the house, but he is refusing to come out of it, saying he's adamant that somebody was after him. Like he may be having he's either legit or dude's having a complete total mental breakdown.
That's terrifying. And I mean, with the head injury issues, that's scary. So Carter's the guy filling in this afternoon, right? Who's Drew?
Say that again?
Who's Drew? This text says, I'm not convinced Diddy, Carter, and Drew aren't just the same guy using different voices.
Drew's one of our other.
He's the guy that took over for Moneypenny.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay. Are we the same? Did we say the same things? Or do we just... Because he does say different voices. Now I want to know how he ranks the voices. Am I the number one voice? He does his best work when he plays Diddy, but he's still pretty good as Carter and Drew. It's also DITTI. I am not a father, nor am I a rapper. Bad Boy Moors. Battle for Atlantis. It was pretty funny to see that was also the sponsor for the women's one.
Uh-huh.
So the South Carolina women were the Bad Boys Mowers champions. Like it doesn't fit as well. We should have had two sponsors. I want one of those mowers. You ever seen those things?
They're too legit.
I'd get my yard done like that.
I'm probably going to be moving in with Courtney next year, and she's got a big ass yard. Right?
Oh yeah.
And so she's got an old riding mower, and I'm like, I want one of the horses.
My grandfather bought me a brand new Craftsman self-propelled, gas-powered dope one for our housewarming, and it's good enough.
All right, I just want to throw this out there. Cincinnati's not going to be in the college football playoff Final Four.
Don't do this to me.
I know. Those of us that are Team Chaos are pulling for it, but Cincinnati will not be in the college Final Four when it's all said and done. All right, just mark it down now. All right, they put them in there. They're in the top four now. Cincinnati has joined Georgia at number 1. You've got Ohio State, who did jump Alabama. We both said yesterday we thought there was a chance. That would happen. Alabama drops to 3. Cincinnati moves into number 4. So now the college football playoff rankings officially mirror the AP as far as the top 4 go. That is official. So our college football playoff rankings are out. We've got Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Alabama 3, Cincinnati 4. Number 5 is Michigan. Number 6 is Notre Dame. Number 7, Oklahoma State. Baylor is 8. Ole Miss is 9. Oklahoma is 10. And what's interesting about that is according to the ESPN FPI, Baylor and Ole Miss have a less than 1% chance of making the college football playoffs. Oklahoma at number 10 has like a 12.5% chance. So it's low, but it's not inevitable or not improbable. I guess it is technically improbable. It's low, but it's possible.
Not impossible, but mostly improbable.
Right, because Oklahoma still remember, we got Bedlam this weekend.
Yep.
Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's favored in that game, by the way. Let me look up. I've got the line written down somewhere. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But Oklahoma State is favored by 4.5 over Oklahoma in Bedlam this weekend. So is there a way for Cincinnati to stay in? Because remember, Cincinnati's got ECU this weekend. Okay? So I'm going to straight up tell you right now, Cincinnati better beat ECU by like 50.
Yeah.
All right? They better win by like 50 points. Because if they are even in a close game with the Pirates of ECU, then the winner of Oklahoma State, if it's Oklahoma State specifically at number 7, they're going to jump way up.
Oh, yeah.
If it's Oklahoma, they're going to jump way up. Your best bet if you're Cincinnati is you better hope Ohio State beats Michigan. And Ohio State's a favorite, too, this weekend. They're at Michigan, and they are favorited by 8.5 are the Buckeyes. You better hope there's not an upset, because if Michigan beats Ohio State, Michigan is jumping Cincinnati, right? 100%. And Ohio State will fall out of the top 4, obviously. So Alabama will go to 2. Michigan would jump Cincinnati to 3. And now if you're Cincinnati, you got to hope that committee doesn't give a whole lot of extra bonus points to either Oklahoma State or Oklahoma. You got Notre Dame sitting right there, and they've already showed you that a heads-up win does not mean that you get ranked ahead of the team that you beat heads up. That was the big controversy about Michigan State a few weeks back. There's still listen, Cincinnati's not in an awful position, but I think if Alabama beats Georgia, and if you're Cincinnati, you're pulling for Georgia too. You want them to beat Alabama.
Yeah, knock them out.
Now, Diddy, would you bet a paycheck that the playoff committee won't let a 2-loss Alabama stay ahead of a undefeated Cincinnati?
I would not. Not after what I've seen so far.
I would not either.
Brand power, baby.
Yeah.
Well, it's Bama. They're 2 losses. I mean, the SEC, right? Oh,
yeah, and
can't put that against them.
I know we make the jokes about it, but that's a real thing. That's 100% a real thing. So, no, I would not be shocked if Georgia beats Alabama, if Alabama doesn't just drop down to 4, if Notre Dame doesn't get to jump Cincinnati.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and call this shot now, and I hope I'm wrong. I am squarely on Team Chaos. I hope I'm wrong. But I'd be willing to bet a donut right now Cincinnati's not in the Final Four. There's too many ways that the playoff committee could take Michigan if they beat Ohio State, could take Notre Dame, who will win out. And looks damn good doing it because they got hot at the right time going into the playoffs.
And they won't have a chance to look bad next week if they blow out Stanford this week.
Correct.
Whereas Cincinnati could stumble and still win against Houston, but not look really good, and that puts Notre Dame up.
That's what I'm saying. Cincinnati's got to win this game by 50.
Yeah.
Cincinnati needs to win their game this weekend against ECU. They need to win the same way Notre Dame beat Georgia Tech last weekend. They got to beat them by 55 and pitch, if not a shutout, close to it.
And they have to handle Houston in the championship game. Yeah. Because even though that's a team that is at their level and is really good and is ranked pretty high, you have to make a statement in that game if you really want to get up there.
If you are Cincinnati here, you are playing against, you have to make up for what Notre Dame, Michigan, if they beat Ohio State, it doesn't matter if they don't, but Michigan, if they, and I'm not banking on it, by the way, I'm taking Ohio State to win that money line. I don't know if I'm taking the 8.5, but I'm taking the money line. But you got to go against Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and maybe Michigan. And you've got to put performance on the field up against their performance on the field and brand power. If Michigan beats Ohio State, there's no way Michigan's not jumping Cincinnati. No way they're not jumping Cincinnati. Notre Dame's going to put another curb stomp down against Stanford. I have no doubt. Okay, I'm taking Notre Dame and laying all the points in that one. Notre Dame's going to curb stomp Stanford. I don't think Stanford's got 2 of those top 10 upsets in them this year.
No.
Notre Dame's got the branding power and a big win. Whatever Notre Dame beats Stanford by, you got to beat ECU by double that.
Yep.
That's my call. If Notre Dame beats Stanford by 24, you better beat ECU by 48. It's that simple to me.
And then root for chaos.
Exactly right. Texture says, after Alabama gets knocked out by Georgia, both Cincinnati and Notre Dame will be in the playoffs. Now, what if Ohio State gets beaten on their conference championship? That'll give them 2 losses. Don't know.
That's the chaos.
So,
yeah, if Georgia beats Alabama, which, I mean, it seems like that should be where it is with how these teams look, but who has Georgia really played?
What did Joe Giglio say? This will be the first time in 92 games that Alabama's not favored?
And they shouldn't be coming into it because of what we've seen. So it makes sense. If they lose that game, Michigan gets blown out by Ohio State this weekend. Oklahoma State loses to Oklahoma this weekend. Yeah, that's the chaos. That would bring in both Cincinnati and Notre Dame as your 3-4. And then I bet you they would do it so that they'd make Cincinnati play Georgia. They'd put Notre Dame at 3, even though Cincinnati beat them.
Well, again, that's why the Michigan State thing was so interesting, because they set up a precedent for them now to say. And I think you're right. Look, the playoff ranking committee as it stands right now, since we're staying at 8 teams for 4 teams for the foreseeable future, I agree. They're going to set Cincinnati up against the biggest badass on the block, so that when Cincinnati goes out there, because I'll tell you right now, Cincinnati, Georgia, I lay the points in. I don't care you tell and this is not disrespectful to Cincinnati, it's just how good Georgia is. Because I'm taking Georgia lay the points over everybody right now. All right. I'm taking Georgia lay the points over, maybe not Ohio State, depending on what the line is, right? I'd say, based on what we've seen the last 2 weeks, I'd say Georgia minus 6.5, 7.5
against Cincinnati.
No, against Ohio State.
Oh, Ohio State.
Yeah. Oh, I'll take Georgia.
Yeah, it would be probably 6.
I'll take Georgia minus 17.5 against Cincinnati.
Yeah, it would be a big spread in the Cincinnati matchup.
And now the fun thing about that is that's the argument, right? Like if I'm on the outside looking in to play devil's advocate against me, against us, I'm going to look and go, okay, Rob, set the lines on this, right? Like when people ask me who's a better team, my first thing I do is I go to Vegas. I try to see, all right, let's look at lines between, same opponents. Let's look at lines versus each other and where would I set it? Cincinnati plays Michigan today. What's the line on that?
I mean, it's probably Michigan minus
4.5, 5.5.
I think even pushing almost 7.5.
Yeah. So
just because they're not going to give the respect.
And let's say neutral site, because it'll be a neutral site game. I'd say Michigan, let's say 6.5, 5.5, 6.5. All right, Rob, if that's the way you feel, why aren't they above Cincinnati? And in fairness, that is the best argument I've ever been hit with. Seriously.
Yeah.
The best argument, and that's why I do it. When I rank teams based on where I think they should go, I set lines on them.
Yep.
If I set the line on Cincinnati, Georgia right now, it would be Georgia minus 15, 16 over Cincinnati. But I'd take Georgia minus 5.5 over Ohio State. I'll take Georgia minus 8.5 over Alabama. I'll take Georgia minus 17.5 against Cincinnati. I'd take Georgia minus 10.5, 11.5 against Michigan. I'd take Georgia minus 10.5 against Notre Dame. I'd take Georgia minus 12.5 against Oklahoma State. And I'd take Georgia minus 14.5 against Oklahoma. All right. So that's about what my rankings look like. And I'm intrigued to see. That's why I said, if you're Cincinnati, you better go out there and you better snap your ankle off in ECU's backside. You better beat them by 50, because anything less than that, and that line grows, and Michigan might jump you. They're looking for a way to keep you out, Cincinnati. They're looking for a way to keep you out. You better go out there and drop 50 in your next 2 games to prove you deserve to be there. Texter says Cincinnati will get curb stomped against Georgia and Ohio State. I got to tell you, I'll probably lay the points for both of those over Cincinnati. I really would.
I'm not so sure about the rest of the teams in the mix, but those 2, yeah.
Sure.
Especially where they're playing right now.
Texter says, if you didn't see, James Franklin signed a 10-year extension to stay at Penn State. Not that I thought he was going to USC, but everyone can take him off for coaching rumors. Yeah, I think Franklin's a Penn State guy.
Yeah.
I really think. I think Franklin was a guy that was trying so damn hard to get to that level that the team that he signed to, and Penn State's not a school to sneeze at. I mean, that's a top 10 school.
Yeah.
I thought whatever, and I said this when they were looking, when James Franklin got hired there, leaving, Vanderbilt? When he left there, I said, whoever signs this guy, you're probably getting a lifer, or at least a couple of decades worth, because this guy seems like a guy who favors commitment. And he knew Vanderbilt was, and he loved Vandy when he was there.
But he did a good job too.
Did a great job at Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt's got a ceiling.
Yeah.
They just do. I hate
Very
it, but
low.
Vanderbilt's got a ceiling. Penn State's ceiling is national championship.
Mhm.
I'm not shocked by this. Let's take a break.
No.
Back after this to wrap up hour number 1 on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate.
I think Vegas is telling you too by only favoring Cincy by 14 this weekend. How much would all those other teams be favored over ECU this weekend? Like you'd be pushing 30 probably against ECU for Ohio State. And Georgia, you get 14.
Yeah, dude, Georgia is a 34.5 point favorite against Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And I don't think Georgia's missed the spread since. Golly, I'm trying to think.
I don't even know.
I don't think Georgia's missed the spread since Alabama. Are you walking out?
Yeah.
Break something up. Yeah, you're good. Be right back, stream, hang out. And we're back. Magic.
About a minute 45.
Auburn UConn could be a really good game.
Yeah. UConn's coming, man.
Yeah.
We're back. My first college team.
UConn?
It was just UConn hoops, really, when we were kids. Because we were from Connecticut. So
When we were up in Connecticut, Courtney and I, we drove by the campus at UConn, and I was very tempted to stop and go see the gym. Very tempted.
just see it, right? Yeah.
Let's go see where Gino coached.
Calhoun.
Yeah. Yeah. What'd I say? Gino?
We're both Shabazz and single-handedly won national titles with no help whatsoever. Twice in 5 years. Kemba had a little more help than Shabazz did. Shabazz just went straight Steph Curry on that tournament. It was the craziest thing. Still can't believe he didn't pan out. The way that shot, I was like, he's definitely going to be good. Oh.
This report is sponsored by
15 seconds.
Bags under your eyes. That's just sleep. And Mattress Firm can help. Shop the Black Friday sale and save up to $500 on top-rated brands you'll love, like Sleepy's. Plus, pair the mattress of your dreams with a free adjustable base with qualifying purchase.
All right, coming up in the next segment of the show, David Rhodes, host of the Panther Nation podcast, is going to join us on the show. We're off tomorrow for Thanksgiving, so we've got our Thursday interviews today. Then at 1:20, Mark Shelley, voice of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits, is going to join us to break down a little upstate hockey. Then at 2 o'clock, Kevin Thomas and John Epps of Moving the Chains will join us. It is the high school state semifinals this weekend. We will have them with us to break those down. And then Kevin and John will actually be attending the state finals coming up next week. So we'll have them on next Friday as well to break down our state championship games. All of that and more coming up in the next hour of the show. We're also taking your playoff thoughts. What are your playoff thoughts right now? What are your playoff thoughts right now with the top four the way that they are right this second? Again, I think I still think the committee's going to do everything they can to lock Cincinnati out. And unfortunately for Cincinnati, with ECU this weekend and with everybody else who's a threat to get ahead of them, Oklahoma State, and Michigan, all with enormous games, all top 10 games. Obviously, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State playing each other. Michigan playing number 2 Ohio State. I mean, if you're Cincinnati, you're I don't know. I was going to say you're probably hoping for Michigan to get the upset to drop Ohio State. I mean, Michigan will jump you, but it'll move a 2-loss Ohio State out of the top 4. Yeah. I think they would.
You would hope, to be honest.
Yeah, I would think they would. But if you're Cincinnati right now, your two favorite options are beat the brakes off of ECU and Houston, and then just have raw, unbridled chaos for the teams ahead of you.
But I think even if that happens, they've set it up to a point where they're going to make sure that if they get in, they get 4 and they get Georgia.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
So that they can get embarrassed so that next year they go, see, that's why.
Because the unfortunate part is if Cincinnati goes up against Georgia and gets dog walked, then the next time that a group of 5 team or a non-power 5 team makes it to that spot, the committee's going to go, hey, we gave y'all a chance and you got absolutely smoked, as if not everybody else that's gone up against Georgia has gotten raked too.
Even if Alabama gets smoked next week, they'll only talk about Cincinnati.
Yeah, 100%. All right, 844-477-3776. Text us on the Ingles Market text line at 71307. David Rhodes of the Panther Nation podcast joins us next on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate.
Phone number. Mute these folks. So that they don't hear it. That's not the right.
Let me turn the stream off real quick.
Okay.
Have you heard the Rob Brown Show?
Tony Gwynn Jr. joining us here on the show. You obviously watched and were involved in what baseball went through last year to pull off that season within the heat of the pandemic. Are you at all surprised with the way that the negotiations between Major League Baseball, the owners, and the Players Association went?
I'm not surprised. I mean, and I'm not surprised, not from the standpoint of what was in the offer, but, most negotiations are built on trust. And clearly these two sides had none of it when it came. So you understand where both sides are coming from, but it still wasn't a surprise. We kind of took the
Oh, that's him. Should be him.
Hey, what's going on, man? We have about 15 seconds. I'm going to throw it on hold real quick, all right? Sweet, thanks.
Providence, Rhode Island. Well, my people.
One of my people.
My mom's
Providence is on the list Courtney and I want to get to.
My mom's family's from out there.
I've heard it's real nice.
Providence area. It's gotten nice.
Yeah.
Used to not be nice.
Yeah. Hour number 2 of the Rob Brown Show goes now on ESPN Upstate. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be with you. I am Rob Diddy at the ones and twos to the phone lines. We go ordinarily. We speak to the gentlemen at the Panther Nation podcast on Thursdays, but as we will be off tomorrow celebrating Thanksgiving with our friends and family, we asked if they wanted to join us today, and of course the answer was yes. From my homeboy David Rhodes, joining us here on the show from the Panther Nation podcast. David, what's up, big dog? Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for taking a few minutes, my man.
Not a problem, man. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family as well. You know, when it comes to Panther football, I'm here. I got the day off, so I'm back.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's jump right to it. First question I'm going to ask you, David Rhodes, is about last Sunday's game against the Washington football team. And I'll leave it open-ended, so I'll phrase my question this way, David. What the hell, man?
You ain't got to tell me that, man. We I think us not being able to stop the run wasn't that shocking. They kind of used the same formula that Dallas used when it came to it, but we also got to remember that Ron Rivera knows this team. Ron Rivera was there when they drafted a lot of these guys. I was more shocked at how terrible we were against the pass. I think that was the most devastating part of it all. Like Gibson running, I wasn't as shocked, but Terry McLaurin having the day that he had, like the defense pretty much had their worst day of the season. And as John Fox would say, they picked a bad day to have a bad day.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. And you know, defensively, and I guess that's what's surprising. I mean, I know Washington's a grind run football team, but what's surprising to me was where Carolina's defense disappeared, right? Like it felt like even the defensive backfield, which is, I thought after adding Gilmore to it, going to be one of the best defensive backfields in the country, they just kind of weren't there. I mean, it's not like Heineke went out and earned himself a Pro Bowl invitation, but no. I just expected better, David.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like Stephon Gilmore is still slowly but surely still recovering from his injuries. So, like, this is the most he's played all season. He played about 55% of the snaps. But the big thing that I wanted, man, the whole game, I was like, yo, we got to get Gilmore on McLaurin because McLaurin is killing Dante Jackson. Like, Dante Jackson had his worst day, which is – and I don't want to beat him up too much because he's been playing at such a high level all season. But, you know, that day it wasn't good. And even Coach Rule was saying that he was too busy looking at the quarterback and playing man like he should have been. But that was all the corners. So, I mean, it was just bad.
David Rhodes, host of the Panther Nation podcast, joins us here on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate. Let's flip to the other side of the ball. So we had Rashad on last Thursday, and I told him, I think like the majority of Panthers fans, not all, but the majority of Panthers fans, I was excited to see Cam back. I thought he was absolutely going to bring a spark to this team that was needed at a point in the season that I think is crucial. You know, with the Saints losing, Tampa dropped 2 in a row, that kind of opened the door in the division and for a wild card race for the Panthers. But I told Rashad, my biggest concern is that with Cam back, that Matt Rule would lose the identity of this team. I thought they still needed to be a run-first team. I thought they still needed to be a team that grounded out and then let Cam do things around that. Rashad said that was his biggest fear too, and that's exactly what happened. They came out and slung the ball like 37 times, ran it, I think, 14 or 15 throughout the day. I thought the identity of the Panthers got away from themselves. David, am I wrong?
Well, here's the thing, right? So I felt like they did throw the ball more, and I think that he abandoned the run too soon. But actually, like, the Cam threw the ball 27 times, I believe, and they ran the ball 21 times. And I told Rashad during our show on Monday that my biggest beef was we didn't run the ball more. Like, Cam throwing the ball 20, 25 times, that's about the sweet spot. I don't want him throwing it more than that. But I felt like we didn't run the ball enough. Like, Chris McCaffrey should never have a game where he only has 10 carries. Like, he had 17 touches, but he only had 10 carries. It's got to be close to 20. That was my biggest beef. He had absolutely no there was time I was just annoyed by the fact that we did. The offense was pretty long.
David Rhodes, host of the Panthers podcast, joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate. And now that we've seen that, right? I thought that the game against Washington was not just a winnable game, David. I kind of almost, not that it was a must-win, but one that would have been really, really nice to win, would have moved you up. You were third in the wild card race. You stay there for now. I thought, especially with the Saints dealing with all the injuries that they have and the offense struggling the last few weeks, this was a really good chance for the Panthers to move up. Do we see Matt Rule get back to running the ball, to putting the ball into the hands of McCaffrey, into Chuba Hubbard, who I think was on the field for one play and had 0 carries? Abdullah, I think, was on the field a handful of plays and had 1 carry. I mean, and I'm going to say this respectfully, I think you can say that they didn't abandon the run, but McCaffrey run it 10 times. Chuba Hubbard ran it 0 times. Abdullah ran it 1 time. If they didn't abandon the run, you're going to have to explain to me where all the runs came from, because I didn't see them.
Cam Newton ran it 10 times too. Cam had 10 carries as well, including that touchdown run that he had. Cam ran 10 times, at all. But I think Matt Rule does want to be a run-first team. I just felt like we just didn't do what we were supposed to do that day. And granted, Rivera wanted that game probably more than anybody else. Other than Cam, Rivera wanted that game more than anybody else. To come back to Charlotte for the first time, Rivera drafted the rock stars on the team on the defensive side of the ball, so he knew that defense. He knew the players. So, and he took advantage of it. He exploited it. But when we talk about our offensive scheme, basically, man, the Washington defense pretty much sat on our routes because they were pretty much daring Cam to throw us deep. And even Rule was criticized of that. Was asked the question of, hey, why didn't you try to throw the ball deep? And he replied by saying, well, that's not part of our scheme. So, like, when your offense isn't part of the scheme to take more chances, that scares me a bit.
David Rhodes joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate, host of the Panther Nation podcast. When I look at what this Panthers team has in front of them, like we said coming into this year, and if you disagree with this, please tell us. But Chad and I said coming into this year, and I thought a wild card was a possibility, but probably the ceiling. And after that game with the win over the Cardinals, even though it was the Cardinals without Kyler Murray, without DeAndre Hopkins, without Chase Edmonds, still a good win because you beat them down on the road. But you gotta beat teams like Washington. You got Miami coming up this Sunday. That's another game you have to win. Putting that Washington game in the L column, how important does it make that Miami game this weekend?
Well, the thing about the Washington loss more than anything else for me were the tiebreakers, right? Like, we were already behind on the tiebreakers. We're 0-4 against the NFC East. And now we have teams that are starting to bubble up. Like, Washington's trying to make a playoff run. Rivera tends to win this game in November, December. Philadelphia's sitting there. Both of those teams have the tiebreakers against us. We lost to the Vikings. They have the tiebreaker against us. So we're pretty much at the stage where we got to have a better record than all those guys. So the Miami game is very important at this point. But what's the most important thing is we got to win more of these conference NFC games with these teams against the wild card. We're going to have that opportunity coming out of the bye. But yeah, we have to beat Miami. And considering they have like the 32nd defense in the NFL, we can't execute against these guys. And on top of that, they have one of the worst run offenses in the NFL as well. This should be an easy game for us. But for some strange reason, we tend to play down a lot of competition occasionally. So this is a super important game for us.
Talking to David Rhodes, host of the Panther Nation podcast here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate. And I agree with you. I think the L to Washington made Miami a must win, right? Because you're right. They dug themselves a hole with tiebreakers. I think the wild card race for the 3 spots is going to be, honestly, I think it's very much going to come down to week 18 when it's all said and done. You got Miami next. Then you got the Falcons, who are just 1.5-point favorites over the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend. So should have back-to-back wins. But the last 4 games of the season, ain't going to be easy. You got the Bills on December 19th, a good team. You got the Buccaneers at home the day after Christmas. Then you go down to New Orleans. I think you'd be favored today, but obviously at that point, the Saints will have Kamara back. They'll have their offensive line back. They theoretically will look a little bit better. And then you wrap it up one more time with Tampa Bay on the road. The problem, David Rhodes, is the last 4 games of the season are 4 very tough games. There's a lot of pressure, I think, on Carolina to make sure you get 2 dubs the next 2 weeks. You'd have had that pressure relieved with the win over Washington, but Dolphins and Falcons, both are must-wins now, right?
Absolutely. And the thing that we have that's in the back of our head, too, is the fact that even though we haven't been too good in the NFC so far, we're 2-0 in the NFC South. So, there was a legitimate scenario where if we would have won out prior to the Washington game, we win the division, right? But now that's kind of out the window. The only hope we have at this point is we just got to play better at home. The first Tampa game is at home, and we need to win that game. When we're on the road, I feel more comfortable because we've been pretty much a road dog because we've been winning all these games on the road. We're 2-4 at home right now. So I have more faith in us being on the road. And luckily, this game is at Miami, so we'll see how this one goes. But, yeah, every game up until this point is must-win. The way that Carolina's been trying, the moves that Carolina's been making, they've been making moves to win now. I don't think this is a rebuilding type of situation anymore. You trade for Gilmore, you trade for Henderson, you bring Cam. Those are all win-now moves.
We're talking to David Rhodes, host of the Panther Nation podcast here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate. Flip back to defense. We had a texter text in on our Ingles Market text line at 71307. David, they said the Panthers' defensive woes last week were due to them switching to zone coverage when man coverage is their strength. I did see them running a number of zone schemes throughout the day. What was the reason for that? First off, is that accurate? Do you feel like they ran more zone than they normally have this season? And if so, what was the reason for the switch?
Well, they did run some zone, but most of the plays that we got beat on man. And even a couple passes that Dusty Jackson gave up, all man plays. A lot of our big plays that we gave up were man plays. And I don't know, there was a lot of confusion. If you watch the game, you'll see that a lot of folks were out of position. So it just seems like they didn't have the energy that they brought out against Arizona the previous week. And you would think they would, considering that a lot of them were paying their old coach. But they just didn't have it. They did play a little bit more zone, but I think even when they were playing in man, they were not executing properly.
David Rhodes, host of the Panther Nation podcast here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate. All right, David, last one. We'll wrap it up, let you get to your Thanksgiving celebrations. Panthers taking on Miami this weekend. Tua's been back. He's looked a little more consistent, but Miami's still a team that's got a lot of problems. We both agree this is a must-win game. Tell me how it plays out and your final score.
So I think the Panthers are going to be able to win this game. I think the defense is going to try to recover from what happened on Sunday against Washington. So I think our defense is going to be on red alert. I recommend the fantasy defense. If you haven't picked up Cam Newton in fantasy, you should go in and pick him up as well. He was the 4th best fantasy quarterback last week. So I say you pick him up as well. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. So if you're into betting, do the under. I got it 20-10 Carolina.
20-10 Carolina. Don't hate the score. We will see how it plays out. David Rhodes is the host of the Panther Nation podcast. You can find them on Twitter at Panther Nation PC. You can also find David on Twitter at ChampD1012, ChampD1012. And of course, subscribe to the Panther Nation podcast on YouTube, your home for everything you need to keep an eye on silver and blue. David, my man, appreciate you coming in last minute, big guy. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, and we'll get you back on soon, man.
No question, man. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in the crew.
Love it. Appreciate it. That is David Rhodes, host of the Panther Nation podcast. Let's take a break. When we come back, Mark Shelley is the voice of your upstate hockey team, the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. And Mr. Shelley joins us next to break down where the Rabbits are and where they're going right here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate.
Upstate Lights.
Here.
I bet.
2021 Upstate Light Show is on. Speedway is your home for not only the Upstate. Mark Shelley.
I'll give it a minute before I call him. Got a decent break here.
Download the Score app today. Lightning fast sports alerts so you never miss a thing. It's why the Score app is one of North America's most popular sports apps. With your ESPN Upstate Sports Center update, I'm Matt Pauley.
ESPN Upstate is your home for Furman Paladins men's basketball every night and every day on ESPN Upstate 97.7 FM Greenville, 97.1
Actually.
Finding the right medical plan may feel impossible, but now it's anything but. With Walgreens Find RX coverage tool, you can compare plans online, over the phone, or in person, making Medicare easier
Buttons don't work very well.
easier than picking which true crime doc to watch, figuring out that Wi-Fi password.
Happy Thanksgiving, Eric.
They cover that on. So if you can do those things, with Find RX
Hey, Mark.
coverage, you can definitely Medicare.
Hey, how you doing? It's Diddy from the Rob Brown Show. Didn't ring. That was weird.
I was yelling at somebody on the stream. We got about a minute and a half, and then we'll be back. So I'm going to get you on hold real quick.
All right, appreciate
it. What mouse am I using?
That's right, $350 off. Terms apply. See website for details.
Happy Thanksgiving Eve, that is, Eric. Thank you.
This portion of the Rob Brown Show is sponsored by Pfizer.
He's back on ESPN Upstate.
Aaron Rodgers is basically looking at the Packers and saying, guess what, guys? It's not my job to be easy to deal with. The great ones are not. They're not easy to deal with. You think Peyton Manning was always easy to deal with? You think all these guys, you name a great player.
You good?
Yeah, he's on. Should look at his description.
What's that?
Just look at the description I gave.
Reset my producer button.
It didn't ring. Like I punch it in
Yeah.
and I'm sitting there waiting for it to start ringing. I look over, I see Happy Thanksgiving Eve from Eric. And I was like, Happy Thanksgiving. He goes, hello. And I was like, hey man, what's up? Sorry about that.
Happy Thanksgiving Eve, Eric. Thank you very much, buddy. I hope you and your family have a tremendous Thanksgiving tomorrow. That's funny.
I was like, my bad, man. Phone didn't ring. I didn't realize. So he might have a popped eardrum from me yelling to try to get this mic to pick it up.
Back to the phone lines we go. We moved all of our Thursday interviews over to today because you boys are off tomorrow predominantly because we're fat and like food.
Hungry.
And, yeah, fat, hungry, and like food almost as much as we like our families. Oh, the phone lines we go up with a young man who is not fat. In fact, my dude fills out a tailored suit like he walks straight off the pages of GQ. The seductive voice of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits, Mr. Mark Shelley, joins us here on the show. Mark, what's the word, big boy?
What's happening, RV? I'll tell you what. I don't know. I don't know about fill out. I certainly fill it out. You know, it might be putting pressure on those seams there and that. You know, that still got all that leftover COVID weight I'm still trying to work off. But hey, we'll get there. But I appreciate the compliment.
Shelley, I would tell you to kiss my rear end, but it'd take you all day, buddy. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from you. Mark Shelley, voice of the Swamp Rabbits, joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate to talk a little bit about the Upstate hockey team of choice, your Greenville Swamp Rabbits. And Mark, a rare Thanksgiving game, but and we'll get to that in just a minute. But we go back to last weekend. Had a trio of games at the Well, including a Sunday afternoon game where the offense started to heat up a little bit against the Atlanta Gladiators, who they'll square off with on Sunday. On Thursday afternoon, Thanksgiving night. Give me a little bit of what you saw at last weekend, some of the things that we saw trending. I mean, this team has shown that they're definitely not afraid to get physical in spots where they need to. But the offense, it took a little while to get rolling at the beginning of the season, but the points are showing up now, it looks like.
Yeah, they definitely are. And I think that one thing that, you know, certainly bodes well for the Swamp Rabbits is that offense has it's come in abundance every time they've played the Gladiators so far. I mean, you're looking at that 4-1 win, and then before that, 5-2, the win down in Atlanta. And then before that, you know, yeah, they lose 7-5, but still being able to put up 5 goals. And in that first meeting, they scored 3 power play goals. We've seen 6 goals between 2 different players in 2 games in Atlanta. Diego Cucchietta and Fitzpatrick in that building. So, I mean, if everything goes to history as performed, you know, we might be looking at a hat-trick goal in Thanksgiving. You know, offense is coming at a high rate for this team, especially over the last couple of weeks. And Sunday's game is no different. You get 3 points out of the new guy that comes in Nikita Pavlichev, stands at 6'7", so he towers over everybody, and he's been a huge addition on the power play. 2 power play goals in 2 games for him. 4 points between the 2 games that he's played for this team, and he's really brought about an offensive shift. And I think now that the team has really settled in and said, listen, we've played 10 games, and we're rolling right on through into now what will be game number 12. Once you hit that 10-game mark, you're really steaming along, and you've started to settle into that rhythm, and they certainly have, and that's why they've led their way to 3 straight wins.
Yeah, you know, it was a tough start to the season. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. And the majority of those games on the road, but they've had a couple of weekends to get some 3-game stands back home. It looks like they found that comfort level. I think chemistry takes time to build, especially at this level. You've got players not only that have come in and gone during the offseason, but even throughout the season, we see guys coming and going. Chemistry takes time at this level. Not a ton of teams jump out to a really hot start. It's more about consistency at this level. And I think, Mark Shelley, the Swamp Rabbits have started to find that, which is big for a team in the ECHL. You know, 3-4 weeks into the season, after 10, 11 games, they've started to find a rhythm. And I think if you've been watching these games consistently, you see that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think one thing that you always have are sort of those growing pains, and especially with a team that's so young. And you talk with Lordo about the team's age, and not having these older veterans. I mean, there still are some. You have guys like Fitzpatrick or tasked for the leading team, guys that are returning from last year that are playing in just their second year pro. Those guys are looked at as veterans within this locker room. You know, those guys are guys that they're leaning on to sort of guide the way for a whole lot of new faces. And now that these guys have gotten those 10 games under their belt and been able to consistently sort of play 60 minutes of hockey a night, that's something that has really turned this start of the season around. To a 1-4 start, all of a sudden now sitting at 5-6, opportunity to level out at 500 if they win 4 in a row against the Atlanta team that's been struggling, and they've won 1 game in their last 5 games for Atlanta. So this is an opportunity where now not only do you get back on consistency, but you get to really sort of use that mentality of in the games you're supposed to win, take advantage of opportunities given to you. And I think this is a great opportunity. And, you know, obviously it's a tough stretch right here over the next 5 games, just 1 home game. And it's against your in-state rival in South Carolina over the next 5. So when you see the Gladiators for, you know, this game to start things off, and then the very next night you get to see South Carolina for what's going to be 4 straight games. That's always something to take into account. But being able to play that consistent hockey, those 60 minutes that Lordo demanded of his team during that slow start that they had, now that they've been able to do that and being held accountable and being able to produce offensively. And let's not take away from the defensive side of things. The defense has really shored things up. We saw in the very beginning, the younger guys, a couple of turnovers, those have been shored up, taking the right passes. And they're doing great goaltending. All 3 goaltenders with wins under their belt. You know, you see, what was it, 53 combined saves between England and John Lesson over the last 2 games, and only 1 goal allowed. England at 27-27 in his second quarter shutout. I think that's his first of the season, 26-27. So be able to see a whole game, goaltending to the defense and to the forward come together in a full 60-minute game over the last couple contests. That's huge. That's momentum building for really when we get to the end of the year.
Mark Shelley, he's the voice of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate. And I wanted to hit on the goaltending because, you know, last year, Andrew Bednard was winning every award that a goaltender could win. He, of course, is now with the in-state rival Stingrays, and you've had Letherman and Ingham, and some other guys that have stepped into that role. And there were some Rabbits fans that I think preseason were justifiably concerned that the goaltending level might be diminished just a bit. But the 3 guys that have been tending net for this team the last couple of weeks have had some freaking hot gloves, man.
Yeah, you know, Evan Fitzpatrick is a tremendous addition to this team. You know, there's no secret about that. He's a former second-round draft pick, so you know, obviously comes with a lot of expectations, and he's played exceptionally well. A little banged up, so we haven't seen him in a couple of games. But you know, when he makes his return, and hopefully here soon, he's you know up in the top 6 of the league in goals against average and save percentage. He's played exceptionally well. And it seemed just a little unfair for him right off the bat. You know, he started 0-2, and yet his numbers were exceptional. You know, he had a below 2 goals against average and just really played well, and good to see him getting back on track. And, you know, for Ingham, who was a returner from last year, saw some time and still being very young, and then Letherman obviously getting a pretty significant workload behind Bednard last season as well. Those 2 getting their victories and playing really well over this past weekend has certainly, I think, erased those questions of what do we do now that South Carolina has stolen Bednard from us and that he's in their net. And, you know, if anything, the numbers have been unfair to Bednard. He's played exceptionally well in South Carolina, but the numbers just aren't there in his favor. And so if you're the Swamp Rabbits and you're the Swamp Rabbits fans, I think those concerns have been quelled, and you're looking at it saying we're right in the position where we want to be. And you have to remember, these are all 3 affiliate goaltenders. You have Ingham being contracted through the LA Kings, and then with the Ontario Reign as Letherman, and then Fitzpatrick being through Charlotte. So these are guys who have contracts at the next level and have those expectations of playing at that high caliber and exceeding the expectations here set for Greenville.
Mark Shelley, voice of your Greenville Swamp Rabbits, as the Rabbits are headed tomorrow evening. They'll be playing a little Thanksgiving showdown against the Gladiators of Atlanta in Atlanta, a team that Greenville's had some success with in the past few matchups. And frankly, I would expect, Shelley, that hot streak to continue. The last 2 times over to Atlanta, as you've mentioned, we've had a couple of hat tricks in the building. Atlanta, a team that's kind of trying to find their own identity. And at this point in the season, this is a big game, Shelley, not necessarily because you're talking about, 2 teams at the top of the league battling it out, but more along the lines of this is the type of game that Greenville has found has moved towards finding their identity. This is a game where I think you can really go hammer it out and continue to build that chemistry and that momentum. How important is this game tomorrow?
Yeah, I think this is a very important game. I think when you look at it from, a standings perspective, albeit super early in the season, this is just the 12th game. So there's 60 games beyond this that are left to play, but you never want to fall drastically behind in the standings. And with a slow start, that's been a race, right? Like, this is an opportunity for the Swamp Rabbits to level out at 6-6 as they get the win tomorrow and try to win 4 in a row. And if you can build that momentum early on in the season, especially after the start that they had, you look at it and you say, okay, we're going to completely move on from that. That's in the past. We're a whole nother team. And here it is just 12 games in. And that's pretty much what they're saying after 11 games. And, this is an opportunity, too, to really sort of assert your dominance over the Gladiators and put the pressure on them throughout the rest of the season and say, listen, we have the lead in the season series, and we know we can play well. So that gives you that confidence every time you do match up with them from here on out. And even in the ones where they've played, even in that 7-5 loss, what did that teach the Swamp Rabbits? They can score. Right? They can score 5 goals in that game. What did they do the very next game that they played the Gladiators? They scored 5 goals again, and that time they got the victory. So it's being able to build that confidence, being able to say, we can score against this team, we can shut them down, which in each subsequent game, it was, they allowed 7 goals in the first one, then just 2 goals in the next one, then just 1 on Sunday. So chipping away down, things are trending the right way for the Swamp Rabbits. So being able to consistently match the efforts that they have put over the last 2 wins over the Gladiators and continue this run of form, that's a huge game in building that momentum and really trying to springboard off of that slow start into a red hot second part of the early part of the season.
Mark Shelley, voice of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits, joining us here on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate. Now, the least important question I'm going to ask you today, Shelley, but the question that has the hottest debate going on today, and I feel like I might be setting Diddy up for a win here as you Northerners make your way down here into the South. Stuffing or dressing? The name is based on the geographic location on the plate. It's stuffing if it's in the turkey. It's dressing if it's outside the turkey on the plate. Correct or incorrect, Mark Shelley?
It's just stuffing.
Thank you.
It's just stuffing.
Yes.
No.
The box tells me.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it's at. It is stuffing.
Yes.
You have to stuff it into something for it to be stuffing. Mark Shelley,
stuffing it in my mouth. In my gullet.
Rob, look at it this way. If there's water in a pool and there's water in a bucket, is it not the same as water? It's still water. It doesn't matter where it's at. It doesn't matter if the water's in the spigot or the bucket or wherever. As long as it gets in the pool, it's still water.
Right, but then it's pool water. If I throw a bucket of water out of the parking lot, you don't call that a pool.
But it's still water.
Mark Shelley is the incorrect voice of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. He and the Rabbits join us usually on Thursdays to talk a little hockey, but we're off tomorrow. Mark Shelley, my man, it's always a pleasure to have you on, buddy. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Enjoy your stuffing / dressing tomorrow, big guy.
Hey, Rob, Diddy, want to say happy Thanksgiving to you guys, to all your listeners, and I look forward to talking to you guys on Thanksgiving for those of you tuning in.
Book it. You'll be able to hear. Texter says, for the love of God, it's dressing.
Never seen a stovetop dressing box in the store.
Mark Shelley, voice of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits, here on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate. When we come back, Diddy and I make our picks for the weekend. A lot of big games in the college world on Rivalry Weekend, and a handful of good ones in the NFL as well. We'll run you down our picks from last week. We'll pick our picks for this week and more on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate. For the love of God.
I've already got the stovetop stuffing box picture saved for a Twitter response. Got to admit, I got you on that last response too.
That's good. That's good. I hate it, but it was
just because it's on the plate. It's like, all right, so green beans are dressing, but they're still called green beans.
Look at the
His feed's going
the
nuts,
feed
too.
line lighting up about Diddy. I've been doing the show for 2 years almost, and I can tell you with all the sincerity, I can have the hottest sports conversation in the state of South Carolina, and it will never touch the responses we get when we talk food.
Oh yeah,
Every
food,
time.
especially in the
Every
South. I mean, that's
time.
why do you think we end up here? Like all of us northern fatties love to come down here and stay because the food's good. We love eating. Trey is right though. It's the same thing. It is the same thing. It's just different terminology. Stephen answered the question here. If it's cooked inside the bird, stuffed, but then you take it out to eat it as a side on the plate, it's stuffing.
No.
Because it was cooked stuffed in the bird.
Keegan, welcome in, buddy. Happy Wednesday, Friday for you all. Yes,
Yes.
indeed it is. Steven, happy Thanksgiving, guy.
Happy
Appreciate you,
Thanksgiving,
man,
y'all.
as always. Steven also says, Diddy is wrong. It's dressing.
Wrong.
Steven says, according to most dictionaries, stuffing is defined as a mixture used to stuff another food, traditionally poultry, before cooking, whereas dressing is cooked in a pan outside of the turkey cavity. So we're going to change it from the geographic location on the plate to the origin of the food.
The cook. How did you make it?
But how many of y'all cook it in the turkey and then remove it from the turkey to put on the plate? Nobody does that. You just cook it inside the bird and you serve it with the bird.
I think it's always.
I legitimately thought dressing and stuffing with it. They are the same thing.
They are the same thing.
It's the same thing
100%
on
the
the
same
plate. It's just the name fight comes over what it's called. It's the same thing.
Hey, you cook it stuffed. You take it out and put it in a plate on the table as a side, and you eat it as a side. That is true as well. It's a whole different conversation. Didn't say I made it from the box, but you don't find a box at the store that says dressing mix. You do, but those are in packets, and they're to make ranch and Italian because that's dressing. Dressing goes on
You
salads.
guys are killing me.
At least we can agree that mac and cheese is awesome. Somehow Diesel is on the side of Can't even believe it.
Listen, regardless of whether it's stuffing or dressing, I will fight side by side for you along the mac and cheese haters.
Mac and cheese for days.
Whether you call it dressing, whether you call it stuffing, I will roll up my sleeves and fight side by side with you against the forces of evil that
Yes.
say macaroni and cheese is not good. Looking at you, Diesel.
I think it's Diesel and Matt Judon
And
and
that's the
nobody
whole
else.
list.
Yeah.
That's the whole
Apparently
list.
Greeny as well before he was talking about the same thing.
Oh,
But I would expect
better from Diesel. I expect better for Diesel. I
And to-
really do.
to the texture, it's not that I make the dressing or
Hang on,
stuffing.
you got to read the text. 'cause
Okay,
it's
the
got a
text
valid
is
point.
if you're making dressing from a box, you're doing it wrong. I didn't say I used the box, which I might have in the past to be
But
lazy.
you are using guidance from
But you
people
don't
who do.
You don't go to the store and look for a box of dressing mix because they don't exist. The only dressing you can get at the store or packets to make ranch, Italian, and other salad dressings, which is what a dressing is. It's something that goes on a salad.
Listen, if you take advice from those boxes, all right, your opinion just DQ'd from me. Texter says ESPN, according to most dictionaries, stuffing is defined as a mixture used to stuff another food, traditionally poultry, before cooking, whereas dressing is cooked in a pan outside of the turkey cavity. If you want to say, I will even accept the logic of if it's cooked in the turkey, it's stuffing, and if it's cooked outside of the turkey, it's dressing. I will accept that as a line of demarcation between those two terms. But how many of y'all cook it in the turkey, then remove it from the turkey and serve it separately? Nobody does that.
I feel like that's all I've ever seen.
Then it's stuffing. Even if you cut the turkey up and you leave it with the turkey, I will still allow it to be called stuffing.
Because I've always seen it. The turkey comes out, everything's done. They pull the stuffing out of it to put it in a serving dish as your stuffing side with all the other sides on the table, and then the turkey gets carved by itself.
Texter says, if you don't have potato salad, just pack it all up and go home.
For Thanksgiving, though?
For Thanksgiving,
that's a cookout meal.
Yeah,
that's a cookout
4th of
side.
July food.
Yeah, no, you want mashed potatoes or, scalloped potatoes or a gratin or something. You don't want, I don't want potato salad on Thanksgiving.
Not Thanksgiving.
No.
4th of July.
Yeah.
I'm all down for some good potato salad.
Memorial Day cookouts.
Memorial Day.
Yeah. Any of the
summertime stuff.
It's a cookout side.
Yeah, it's a cookout side.
Same with macaroni salad. You want
know,
mac and cheese.
When you get Diddy and me on the same side on a food take, then you're probably right or wrong or very wrong.
Or very wrong.
one or the other. Go to the Facebook stream at facebook.com/ESPN Upstate and join the stream there. We've got a lot of discussion going on there. Keegan said stuffing and cornbread dressing is different.
That is true, though.
It depends on where. And one of the things that when it comes with food, and we had the same take with the hot dog versus chili dog discussion, right? It's also based largely on where you are, what culture you're in when you make it, right? Like in South Carolina, this is the biggest fight. This is a positive thing to say. The biggest fight the lady friend and I have had is that a hot dog does not come with chili on it. That's a chili dog. There's a difference, but in South Carolina, that's just what a hot dog is, right? I think the stuffing dressing debate is more prevalent amongst folks from the north who have moved to the south. Like I suspect if I went up to the north, like if I took a job in New York City and I was like, can y'all pass the dressing? They'd be like, yeah, here's the ranch, right?
Exactly. Would you like ranch, blue cheese, Thousand Island?
Right. Whereas if you go to my grandma's house down in Florida and you say, can I have the dressing? She's going to be like, yeah, it's right over there in that bowl that I cooked it in.
Yeah.
Because it's different.
And that is the difference. I mean, you heard, obviously, Mark was on my side as another Yankee in the South, and you guys are all agreeing on the feed and on the text because y'all are from down here. And that's fine. That's okay.
Steven says, so
this is what's not fun. I agree with Steven 100% here.
Diesel came out on Twitter earlier today and said it's time for him to step forward from the shadows and acknowledge his hate of mac and cheese. Steven says Diesel is a communist with his mac and cheese take. and here's the other part. And Eric's right about this. Mac and cheese is in every holiday.
It's an interchangeable holiday
right?
food.
Like turkey, we limit turkey to the winter holidays. Nobody eats turkey.
No. And it's really just
of like sliced turkey on a sandwich. Yeah. You don't make a turkey for 4th of July.
And it's really just this holiday, right?
And pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, like some people will do it for Christmas, but I think most people go ham on Christmas.
Yeah. Or, I mean, depending on your culture and upbringing, we do, the full Italian meat feast. So it's gnocchi and meatballs and sausage.
Nobody goes turkey for anything other than Thanksgiving.
No.
Mac and cheese good at every holiday.
Yeah.
Every holiday.
Which is why it was never like a specifically Thanksgiving thing in my mind, because I feel like it was always there. So it 100%. Wasn't like something that was, it's Thanksgiving, I get to have mac and cheese right now. Well, like I had that like 2 days ago, so it's cool.
And will 2 days ago.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's do this. Let's take a break. When we come back, you know what we haven't got into yet? It's freaking rivalry week, boys.
Oh, hey, Palmetto Bowl.
Turns out.
It's a little bit of a big deal.
South Carolina says that game is sold out for Saturday. Willie B will be to the rafters on Saturday. We'll break that game down next on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate. I don't know if we're going to have time for it.
Yes, on the prime rib. This year, though, Eric, and I will say you should make a trip out to Simpsonville for this Christmas. So should you, Rob. We're going to do something grill-wise for the meat for Christmas. So maybe like a tri-tip or some kind of big piece of beef to grill while my mom does the gnocchi and meatball and everything else.
Dude, I absolutely want to come to a Diddy Christmas celebration.
Oh, it's good. I get it every other year. Switch off with Nick, the brother. This is my year. And Ashley had the audacity at one point, not Odyssey, audacity, to suggest that we should cook Christmas dinner so she doesn't have to. And I was like, I appreciate the sentiment. I appreciate you caring about my mother so much. But no, it's my year, and I'm getting gnocchi. This is how Christmas works. Sorry.
I don't know if I've ever had it.
So there's two different kinds of gnocchi, too. There's the potato and the ricotta cheese.
Okay.
We do the cheese.
Okay.
It's a lot lighter, less filling. I think it tastes way better. The other one's just like little potato dumplings. There's a place in Simpsonville that has really good gnocchi, and it's made the right way, too. This is our family delicacy. My great-grandmother always made it, and my mom tried to learn from her and always screwed up. And then when my great-grandmother passed, all of a sudden my mom made the best gnocchi. So it was like she handed it to her. Yep. And my family's from Rome area, which means it's sauce, not gravy.
Okay.
Gravy goes on turkey tomorrow. The Sunday sauce.
The Italian version of
That is the Italian version of dressing and stuffing. We say stuffing, a.k.a. sauce.
sauce.
Southern Italians, Sicilians say gravy. Just like Southerners here say dressing. And we really don't do mac and cheese. Mac and cheese is an obsession I grew on my own. Just being a fat kid.
This feature sponsored by Dell. Now is the time to shop Dell Technologies' biggest sale of the year. Dell Technologies.
Y'all should fire Diesel for saying that about mac and cheese. Somebody once referred to as chili as hot dog sauce on this show. So now somebody will text hot dog sauce every time we bring it up, and it's hilarious.
Well, I'm a sinner who just likes ketchup on a hot dog too. So
A sinner.
that upsets people. I like salsa on a hot dog too. Salsa dog is fire. It's really, really good.
Salsa.
We had it at some random.
Diddy, are you okay?
I think it was some kind of like beer fest thing that my parents went to in Sacramento when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and they had food and stuff, and I was like with them.
Salsa?
And they had like a salsa dog stand, and we were like, "What is that?" And we had it, and it was really good. So now, like, I'll do that every once in a while.
It's awesome to be surrounded by fellow fat boys at the most wonderful time of the year.
We rule these 2 months, man. From October 31st to the end of the year, it's our time. Who do you need advice from?
You skinny bastards can have June and July.
Yeah, sir, you look great in friggin' short shorts and tank tops, but I know who wants the food when it comes to the important time of the year. Red sauce is red sauce at all eats. It's like those 90s commercials with Prego and Ragu. I mean, one can be really good and one can be god-awful.
Correct.
There's also something that happens in the South that bothers me when it comes to Italian food. Not every pasta is spaghetti. They all have their own name.
Correct.
It's like, we're making spaghetti tonight, and I get over there, and it's, penne, and Alfredo sauce. I was like, well, that's not spaghetti. Like, you made penne Alfredo. That's different. Diesel gave me the code for the key, and I keep forgetting to go get it so I could go make another cup of coffee. My liquid life juice.
Life juice. How else is one expected to get through the day?
I don't know. I've tried.
I have never found a coffee that I liked. Genuinely, I've tried. I've tried them hot, cold, iced, regular, black, light, white. I've tried every of the coffees, and I've yet to find one that I enjoy.
That snuck up on me. We back.
Palmetto Bowl going on this Saturday night. South Carolina announcing that Willie B is sold out. It is going to be packed at Willie B on Saturday night. What's the old saying? You don't always know what you got till it's gone. We did not have a Palmetto Bowl last year. Disappointing for my first full football season.
Yeah, that was rough.
In the area to not have one. Not only do we have one, it's going to be at Willie B on Saturday night. Looking forward to it. Look, it's funny. I saw somebody on Twitter yesterday that shared a meme that I thought was dead on. Like, one of the great things about memes is how like coldly precisely accurate they are sometimes. Where it had a guy just kind of like looking nervously down, and the meme was like South Carolina and Clemson fans not talking smack this year because neither knows which one of their teams is going to show up. Seriously, think about that. This is interesting. This is interesting because you really do have two bipolar teams here, right? You've got two teams that have two different identities. Both of them do. You got the Clemson that showed up and put 44 on UConn and 48 on Wake. You got the South Carolina team that showed up and dropped both Florida and Auburn at Willie B. But you've also got the Clemson team that took, 7 weeks to score 20 points. And you got the South Carolina team that went on the road and laid an egg against Missouri and took everything they had to get by ECU earlier.
And Vandy.
In the year. And Vandy earlier in the year. And really, they're a Miss Vandy field goal away from having a loss to Vanderbilt on the roster. But then they can beat Auburn at the house. You know what I mean? Like, you've got two teams, and we genuinely do not know which one of the two of them is going to show up. I've said this. The end of the day, the power rests with Clemson in this. If the Clemson that beat Wake Forest shows up, there is nothing South Carolina can do. I've told this story 100 times. I'll tell it 100 more. Diddy, you may have not have heard this. When I was in middle school, I had a coach named Tom Grant. The year after the final game of my 8th grade year, we lost to Pryor Middle School, our in-county rivals. And Tom Grant walked in and he sat down on the weight bench and he put his big straw hat down and he looked at us and we were all ready for the butt chewing we were about to take. And he said, "You know what, boys? Today we had the biggest problem in sports. Sometimes the other team's just better than you are." And that's what this is. If that Clemson that beat Wake shows up, there is nothing said. No. South Carolina can play the best game of the year and they will still lose that game because Clemson's just better than they are. But this is what I said yesterday, and you defended me on this, Diddy, and I appreciate it. That's one time.
Yep.
They have done that one time. They needed everything they had and a lucky bounce to gut out a win over Florida State, who lost to Jacksonville State. The 44 they hung up on UConn, like, it looks good on paper, but if you watch that game, it was the ugliest 44 points I've ever seen.
And UCF, by the way, dropped 49 on them last game.
Yeah, it's not good, right? Everybody's dropping 45 on UConn. That's not impressive. It's the team that lost. I mean, if the Clemson team that played last week showed up, South Carolina is done. There's nothing they can do. But if the Clemson team that played in any of the first 11 games of the season shows up, South Carolina's got a chance. But it's got to be the South Carolina that beat Auburn. It's got to be the South Carolina that smoked Florida at the house. If one of those two South Carolina, if the South Carolina team that beat Vandy by 1 shows up, if the South Carolina team that needed everything they had to slip by ECU shows up, they're going to lose. No matter what Clemson does, they're going to lose.
And if the one that showed up, or actually, let's say, didn't show up in College Station, doesn't show up again, and Clemson plays like any of those games, they win. And honestly, you can almost take it to 2 out of 11 games, because if Clemson plays the way they played against Georgia, with the defensive prowess and holding them to not anything with a team that scores as much as they do now, that's going to hold South Carolina down enough to, I think, make this a really hard game to win. So
I rest on that game just a little bit. I don't run to that game immediately because it was week 1, right? Like, it was week 1. And at the end of the day, every football coach I've ever talked to has said the same thing, which is your team is not your team in week 1. They're your team in week 2. The most improvement you have as a football team is not during spring training. It's not during fall camp. It's during the week between week 1 and week 2, game number 1 and game number 2. Georgia, since that game, has been a powerhouse.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think they knew who they were in week 1. And that's okay. Clemson was the same way. They didn't know who they were. And their defense came out and punched Georgia in the mouth. It was a fantastic football game. But we have seen, you can look at this and you can go, okay, Clemson looked pretty solid in week 1. And they looked pretty solid in week 11. Well, game 11. But you got to explain those 8 games in the middle.
Yeah.
You got to explain 8 games in the middle where they won a few, but they didn't look impressed. They didn't look like Clemson in those 8. So, of the 11 games they've played so far, 18% of them, Clemson's look really good.
Yeah.
But 82% of them, Clemson is a team that can lose to South Carolina if South Carolina plays the way they played against Auburn. And here's the thing. Clemson has had some games at the house, jacked up stadium behind them where they did not look good.
Yep.
South Carolina, every game they've played at home has looked good, or at least better than they have on the away games, right?
Okay.
Better than they have in the away games. So the good news is, I would say this. If this game was in Clemson, I'm taking Clemson and I'm laying all the points.
Oh, yeah.
Taking Clemson and laying all the points. But this game's at South Carolina, where South Carolina's played their best football. Clemson better bring their A game. They better bring their Georgia game. They better bring their Wake Forest game. If they bring other, and by the way, don't tell me, they can string it back to back, because they could have done it earlier in the season and they didn't. They did. They looked good in week 1 against Georgia and then progressively worse for like 6 weeks. And they finally put one together against Wake. So don't tell me it's a guarantee that Clemson rolls the same team from last Saturday out this Saturday, because it's not.
Especially on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, I feel like we're still going to see a lot of what we've seen defensively throughout the year, because they have been able to actually play some pretty good defense, which has kept them in some of the games where their offense struggled and then they got over the hump, the close win against FSU being an example. So I think the defense will still be there. But if that offense doesn't show up the way they have last 2 weeks, even with that bad week against UConn to start, obviously that ended much better offensively for them. That's big trouble for South Carolina, because we have seen them, when they start slipping defensively, kind of implode a couple of times this season. But again, like you said, under the lights in Willie B, it has been a different animal again this year. And with that meme you referenced earlier, I think a lot of it is very accurate with the Clemson fan wondering which team's going to show up. Part of it, I think, applies to South Carolina fan. I think the other part of it is we forgot how to get excited for this game. It's kind of been a while.
Well, I mean, look, it's first off, it's been 2 years since this game happened.
Yeah. And then
and
6 since we had hope.
Yeah, exactly. So that is what I'm interested in for South Carolina. I'm interested in the atmosphere in that stadium, because this is the first time that since well before I got here that I'm talking to Gamecock fans around here, and they're like, we don't think we're going to win, but we know we got a damn chance.
Yep.
And if you got a chance to knock off Dabo's boys, I expect, look, there ain't a roof on Willie B, but if there was one, I'd expect y'all to take it off on Saturday night, because the best chance you got is get loud, get in DJ's head, disrupt communication, and make what has been a challenging task for Clemson's offense all year that much tougher against a defense that, from what I'm seeing from our buddy Corey Diaz, who's at the press conference today, is chomping at the bit. Third hour's next on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate. Courtney said, "Oh no, we gonna win." Courtney said, "Oh no, we gonna win."
Oh, we gonna win. I want to have her confidence, but I cannot. I did tell my buddy, I was like, I don't know, man. I think you might as well hammer those points. 11.5.
Is that the line?
Yeah, it's still at 11.5.
I didn't see it that high. I think I saw it at 8. Let me see what I had
I
it.
feel like it started at 14.
I've got it at. Oh, you're right. It is 11.5. Oh, absolutely. I'm hammer. I'm taking the points if I'm South Carolina.
I'm almost tempted to go under, even though it's only 43. I think it's going to be kind of ugly.
It could. You know what? You might be right. You might be right.
ESPN Upstate.
Kevin and John are calling. Oh my God, door.
Kev, what's going on, dude? Let me put you on hold and answer the other one. All right.
Download the Score app.
ESPN Upstate.
Sports alerts so you never miss a thing. It's why the Score app is one of North America's most popular sports apps.
You said who again?
ESPN Upstate Sports Center update. I'm Matt Pauley.
Man, my phone is really bad. I'm sorry. Gotcha. We do have a guest right here. Would you want to hold through or come back in about 15 minutes? Call back. All right, cool. I just don't want you to have to sit there for 20 minutes. All right, absolutely, no problem.
I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
It was a lawyer.
ESPN Upstate.
And it had on a facial filter that turned his face into a kitty cat. So
Sweet. Let me get you on hold real quick. We got about a minute till we're back.
About judgy lawyery stuff with a cat. And the best part is the lawyer insisting to the judge, Your Honor, I am not a cat.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am not a kitty cat. Even though it may appear that I may be a kitty cat, I am actually a man.
If the glove don't fit, you meows the quick.
It's the Rob Brown Show. Weekdays 8 to 12 on ESPN Upstate.
December the 8th and 9th, Greenville County law enforcement will be on hand stepping towards the innovation. Plus,
So I'm assuming I have to put both pots up for this. I've never done 2 callers at once on this station.
Yeah, but I don't. Alonzo has a way to do it.
I'll figure it out.
Oh, do they both stay on air?
They're not on air yet.
Okay.
They're on hold.
The Rob Brown Show, the third, the final, the best, the money hour of the show gets going now. This is ESPN Upstate. I am Rob Brown. Diddy on the ones and twos playing the role of the great one today. Appreciate you guys joining us, hanging out with us. 844-477-3776, 844-GSP. ESPN is the number. We go to the phone lines now and welcome in 2 young men who ordinarily join us on Fridays, but your boys will be on a vacation on Friday. So we bring them in now, I think. We're going to find out from Diddy here in just a second. Kevin Thomas and John Epps of the Moving the Chains podcast. They cover high school sports around the great state of South Carolina. We are heading into the high school state championship semifinals this weekend and got a couple of games lined up. Do we have either one of them on right now, Diddy, or who do we got?
John is on.
John Epps is on the show with us. We'll work on getting Kevin back in here in just a minute. But Epsy, baby, what's happening, big fella? How you doing, buddy?
Boy, I'm excited. Feels like a Friday. Unfortunately, we're not quite there yet, though.
Not quite there yet. Almost. It's almost there. Hang in there, big fella. Let's talk semifinal matchups, and we'll start because I know we got a couple of local teams that are still in the hunt, or at least upstate teams that are still in the hunt. Give us, for those of us that are kind of following from a distance, give us a lowdown on what we're looking at in the semifinals for the folks in the upstate.
Yeah, I tell you what, the biggest one for listeners here in our area is the big 5A matchup. We've got Gaffney will be actually headed over to Spartanburg to play the 5A Upper State Championship game. Just the way the brackets work out, Spartanburg gets the host. But let me tell you something pretty cool about this one, Rob. We heard rumor earlier this week. Now, this is rumor. We don't know facts. However, Gaffney has sold 4 times as many tickets on their side of the stadium as Spartanburg has as of yesterday. Even though that game's in Spartanburg, it could be a huge, huge Gaffney crowd on hand.
Really? How does that? So I'm assuming that are the tickets split 50-50 between schools?
It's not split 50-50. It's they'll sell them to whoever wants to buy them. But from what we heard yesterday, Spartanburg had sold roughly $4,000 worth in tickets. $10 tickets. That's $17,000 worth. So we do the math. That's at least 1,700 people.
A big crowd on hand. Break that game down for me. We're working on getting Kevin in here as well, but break that game down for me as far as what you expect to see with it being in Spartanburg.
Well, Gaffney has been really the favorite in 5A in Upper State all year. And they're coming off, I remember this impressive end of the season. Last Friday against Northwestern, they were tied 10-10 at the end of regulation. The only touchdown from the Indians came off of a special teams play. They recovered a punt deep in Northwestern territory, and then Gaffney would go on to win that game.
Oh, come on. That was not the correct answer. The phone lines. So do me a favor real quick, Diddy. We'll see if
Kevin's on.
Oh, now we got Kevin on.
I just lost John.
We're just gonna switch phone calls back and forth till we figure this out. Text, see if you can get the great one on the phone. He may be able to walk you through this. But we got Kevin Thomas joining us now on the show. Kmart, my dog, what's happening, big fella?
What's going on, man? Just getting ready for a nice holiday weekend here. It's a big football game.
I love it. We were just talking with John Epps. We're going to try to get him on back here in just a second. But he was starting a breakdown of Gaffney at Spartanburg, big 5A matchup. This one at Spartanburg. He was telling us that Gaffney, however, has sold more tickets to this game so far. Break that game down for me if you don't mind, Kmart.
Yeah, it's actually a rematch of a Week 0 game that we saw, which Gaffney won 31-12. But in that game, Spartanburg did not have quarterback Raheem Jeter. He is back now. He is healthy. The Vikings are playing some great ball. And what I like about that team is they've got different guys stepping up each week, whether it's the Richardson kid or the Danton kid or Singor out wide or Drake Carter is now back. A lot of weapons there for Spartanburg. I think Gaffney has just a little bit more talent with guys like Bullock and Little John and Dowdle. And guys can just make plays on the field. And they try Johnson as well. The offense, we know about Tyler Smith, Ken Littlejohn, and whatnot. I think this game is closer than the Week 0 matchup, but I think Gaffney has a little bit too much firepower, and the defense is being very opportunistic with turnovers, especially plays things like that. I like the Indians in a close one here Friday night. And,
we were talking, and again, John was telling us a minute ago that Gaffney is selling more tickets, and it may even kind of tip the scales. It is at Spartanburg, but Gaffney seems to be bringing a good crowd there. Is there any chance that maybe impacts the game a little bit?
It could. Gaffney always travels well. That's a town that, even though they're a larger town, a 5A school, they really get behind their team. Some similar to what you see in, some of these smaller communities like a 2A or a 1A school. But this 5A town really gets behind it. And it's going to negate any home field advantage that Spartanburg has, I feel like. And Gaffney, they're going to make some noise. They're going to be loud. And they're going to be ready to support the Indians for sure.
Love it. Love it. Kevin Thomas joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate, working on getting John Epps back in here as well, but got some issues with the phone, so we'll see if we can make that work. What else out of this state semifinal? Listen, this is, as far as high school football goes, you're getting down to the cream of the crop. You're getting down to the best of the best remaining. What's the we got 5 games going on. 5 games, obviously, for the state championship. So we've got a good semifinal with the best of the best. Tell me what the folks out there looking at what to watch this weekend. What are the games might they want to keep their eye on around the upstate?
Yeah, my favorite one actually across the whole state is going to be this 4A matchup, and that's Greenville, the Red Raiders traveling down to Rock Hill to take on South Point and the Stallions there. This game has got athletes all over the field. Greenville, we mentioned every week, Rob, how they may be one of the most talented teams in the state with guys like Pro Franklin and Pepper and Holland and Sapp and Kelly and Bennett and Smith and, Sadler. The list goes on and on and on, Whitner and all those guys. South Point can kind of match them. Zay McCrory, Wayman Generette, the Sims kid, A.J. Miller. They've got talent as well, and that's a program that's been there. They've had a lot of success last few years here in 4A. Greenville is trending in the right direction right now, but that is going to be a tough place to play Friday night over there in Rock Hill.
Talking to Kevin Thomas, host of the Moving the Chain podcast. You can find them on Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever your podcasts are found. Also find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Moving Chains, MOVINCHINS. What do you guys, I know you guys have been doing interviews and all that. Has there been anybody that's still left that's given you, something to watch in these semifinals that maybe stands out amongst some of the other teams?
Oh, man, let's try to think here. I think, you got to look down into that 2A game there. Gray Collegiate hosting Newberry. We had the Gray Collegiate head coach on last week, Adam Holmes, did a great job explaining to people, what is different about a charter school, which Gray is, things like that. And, Rob, I'll tell you what, they've got one of the best football players I've ever seen at the high school level in KZ Adams there for Gray Collegiate. This kid, he's got a good chance to go over 3,000 yards for the season. He's the second all-time leading rusher in South Carolina football history. This kid is like Barry Sanders at the high school level. He's got all the moves, got all the quickness. If you have not seen his play, have not seen his highlights, go check him out. Currently committed to Georgia State, but I'm telling you what, he could play in a big-time Power 5 program, and somebody's going to get a steal if they get this Adams kid.
We're talking to Kevin Thomas, host of the Moving the Chains podcast here on the Rob Brown Show and ESPN Upstate. Make sure you follow them on all the social media. You guys I know you guys are going to be working games on Friday, and I believe we're working on getting you set up to cover through the state championship game. What are the games that you specifically are keeping an eye on going to?
Yeah, so we're going to be kind of split up this week due to the holiday. We'll have a couple guys over at Chester and Daniel over there in Central taking that matchup on there. The defending 3A state champion Lions, they woke up last week, Rob. We'd worried all year about, did they have the same explosiveness and whatnot? They just beat Clinton, a good Clinton team, 52-7. So they really woke up last week, it seems like. Then we may be down also at Camden and Dillon in the lower state action. So we're going to have a couple different games covered here for you guys this week for sure.
Love it. Kevin Thomas of the Moving the Chains podcast. And I think we got John Epps now up too. Johnny boy, you back with us, big fella?
I'm back alive.
Love it. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. All right, we just had Kevin kind of walk us through the end of that Gaffney-Spartanburg contest. John, what's sticking out to you this weekend that upstate prep football fans should keep an eye on?
I tell you, I think the one game we haven't touched on yet is that 3A game, Daniel hosting the Chester Cyclones. Daniel had kind of been just taking care of business all year, and then last Friday is when they exploded. They absolutely blew out a very good Clinton team, 52-7. They look to be having it going, clicking on all cylinders here at the right time. But they're going to play probably the hottest team in the upper state in the Chester Cyclones Friday night. It's going to be a great game between who is the most talented team around, probably Daniel, and probably the hottest team in the upper state in Chester. That's going to be a great one to check out over in Central.
All right. I love it. Let's go on the record, boys. Next weekend, we've got our state championship games just down the road from us. Kevin, we'll start with you. Who are you looking at? Who do you think this weekend's going to be moving on that's been making some noise?
Yes, out of the upper state, I'm going to take Gaffney in the 5A matchup. There's too much firepower there. 4A, I'm going with the slight upset. I think Greenville goes on the road. They're playing so well right now. I think the Red Raiders upset South Point. 3A, I like Daniel. I think they win by a couple scores over Chester. 2A, Gray Collegiate. They just beat Newberry a few weeks ago by multiple scores. They do it again. I like the War Eagles there. And then 1A, the game we didn't mention, Southside Christian, the front runner. They're going down to Lamar, a tough place to play there. But I like the Sabres in a close one over the Silver Foxes to move on to Columbia next week as well.
John, who's your favorites out of this semifinal weekend?
I'm going to be a little bit there from Kev. The only way I'm going to go different, I'm picking South Point to actually beat Greenville. I think they just have they know what they're doing. They've been here before, and I like South Point in that 4A upper state game.
Love it. Love it. John Epps, Kevin Thomas, they are the hosts of the Moving the Chain podcast. You can find them on all the social media at Moving Chains, MOVINCHINS. And of course, you can find their podcasts on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever your podcasts are found. Make sure you follow them on Facebook where they go live with interviews and coverage and all that. Boys, I know it's going to be a busy couple of weekends for you, but we appreciate you taking some time to come talk some football with us, fellas.
Yeah, appreciate you, Rob. We'll catch up this weekend and have a good old time down in Columbia for sure.
I don't hate the plan, buddy. John Epps, thank you, big fella. We'll talk to you next week too, man.
Always a pleasure, Rob. You have a good Thanksgiving.
You got it. You guys as well. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. That's Kevin Thomas and John Epps. Find them on the Moving the Chains podcast. Let's take a break. When we come back, Diddy and I take a look at some of the big games for the weekend. There's some interesting spreads and lines that I want to get to, and we'll hit those when we come back on the Rob Brown Show. This is ESPN Upstate.
Yeah, that was bad.
I completely forgot that Lonzo has to do something special.
It was pretty obvious once I did it that I'm just a dummy. So
I'd have been lost, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I just want Keegan on the stream to know that I got your text and it was everything I had not to laugh out loud on it.
Oh, jeez.
Can you read the bottom text there? I'm not going to read it on the air, but that's an incredible text.
It's accurate.
Download the Score app today. Lightning fast sports alerts so you never miss a thing. It's why the Score app is one of North America's most sports apps.
When Lonzo finally texted what it was, I was like, oh, dummy. Like, yeah, because if I hit the on-air thing twice, it locks it, which means he's locked on air. Then I can hit the on-air thing for the other guy, and then they're both on air.
Yep.
But I was just like, on air, and it dumped Kevin. I was like, no. And I was like, wait, up here it says Fader 1, Fader 2. Maybe if I click Fader 2, it'll bring Kevin to Fader 2. Nope, just hung up on John.
Not that either.
I was just like, oh, my God. Don't worry, y'all. Lonzo will be back Monday.
No, dude, you're killing it. You're killing it. We got a bunch of text on yesterday. I went back and looked back at the text line. We had a handful of texts that were like, dude, that show's you guys are fun.
Yeah, I saw those yesterday.
Roll with that.
Like the dig at the other show was funny.
Hey, you always get those.
Be sure to seek medical advice at the first sign of fever. Learn more at exergen.com. 'Tis the season. Season for what? For the Upstate Holiday Light Show. Where's that? At Greenville Pick and Speaker. Millions of incredible kids light zone. 600-foot light tunnel, even a drive-through petting zoo. Do we need tickets? Sure, but fast passes are available. Plus, it gets the hubby into the holiday spirit, so we're not doing that last minute thing. Where do I score some tickets? Just go to Upstate.
I got to go buy beer today.
You got to go get a beer today?
Just go buy beer so I have beer for tomorrow.
Oh, you personally have to go get beer.
I have a lot of beer, but a lot of it is very hype, expensive, rare beers.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking to just guzzle those all day while I watch football by myself.
Oh, I get it.
Like I have beers that are probably worth almost $2,000 for one 12-ounce bottle.
Golly.
That brewery I work for downtown, not the main brewery I work for.
Gold?
No. Just they played the game the right way to where the rarity is so high and the demand and there's so little of it that stuff, the barrel-aged ones are insane.
I will pay good money for a good beer.
Yeah.
I have never had, even when people, like I've had a couple of bottles like, like $50 a bottle beer. And I'm like, no, I'm not paying $50 a bottle for it. It's still a beer. Still tastes like beer.
We can open one of these together one day. So a lot of them, most of the ones we drop out there at that brewery are like $20.
Right.
For the non-barrel aged. The barrel aged ones we sell for $35 to $40, depending.
For a bottle?
For a bottle.
12 ounce?
Yep. Well, 12 and a half. It's 375 milliliter. A little bigger.
Yeah.
But the barrel aged ones are so much less because like you can only, usually it's like one barrel. So it's, a couple hundred bottles.
Right.
So it's so rare, and then they're so good at that brewery that the secondary market, it's 8th State downtown.
What's it called?
8th State Brewing Company. It's nothing to do with us being the 8th State. It's just ironic, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, Eric knows. I've split a lot of my bottles with Eric here next door neighbor to my apartment complex. You get out front so he could split a bottle and he could still keep an eye on the kids.
State Brewing Company.
Like, tell him how good Cypher was. That's one that's worth about $2,000 in trade.
Let's see. What's their best beer?
It's really hard to say. This is the Fanboy Friday segment, right?
I was gonna move it, but it's all
Oops.
good. We'll do picks next segment.
It changes, so I'll explain why it always changes. I see. Oh man. Cypher.
When you hear the lightsabers clash, it's time for
Yes.
Fanboy Friday on a Wednesday because, we're not here on Friday, and me and Diddy wanted to, primarily because I have not gotten to ask him.
Yeah.
How good was Ghostbusters?
The greatest. Oh my goodness.
The greatest, he says.
How often do you wait 30 years for something and then it pays off?
Rarely.
Yeah.
Really?
It paid off and then some.
So the problem you have
mind-blowing.
The problem you have when you make a movie like that, right, is like even if you all right, so like the Star Wars prequels, right?
Yeah.
Like until the 2006-7 era, we had no idea these were even going to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But once you announce that if you are connecting yourself to a franchise that is beloved as Star Wars, as Ghostbusters, your bar doesn't start like a lot of movies where the bar starts low and then you raise it with trailers and announcements and all that. Your bar starts with Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
that's
which
the
is
bar.
one of the most beloved movies I think of all time.
100%. Like when they made the all-female Ghostbusters a few years back, I've had this conversation with many friends many times. The premise is fine.
Yeah.
The premise of the movie is fine.
Cast is fantastic.
The cast was great.
Unreal.
The problem isn't like, cause I saw a lot of people on social media start with people aren't watching it because it's female. And it's like, no, dude, like I went and watched it almost because it was female. I love the concept. I love the idea. The problem was that if you are going to attach yourself to greatness, I expect greatness, right? If you are going to attach yourself to greatness, then you better be great. And that movie just wasn't great. It honestly, if it would have been any other concept, it probably would have been an okay movie. But you set the bar at one of America's favorite film franchises of all time. The second thing with that one was in not having and doing the Ghostbusters, but really having no attachments to the OG Ghostbusters. You've created this alternate universe that is separate from Murray and Aykroyd and the gang. That I can't wrap my head around existing. And this is from somebody who loves the Marvel movies where they in the last few iterations have been jumping entire universes and timelines together. I can wrap my head around the concept of alternate realities existing within one reality. But when you detach yourself completely, you set yourself up to fail. The fact that they brought back, and I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know how involved they are, and don't spoil anything, Diddy.
Don't spoil anything.
But
especially for
the fact that from the previews, they're at least attached. The story revolves around the OG Ghostbusters. I don't know how much they are involved in the movie and the story, but it's attached to them. And you've directly connected it to them, but you've also brought in the new elements, and you've also updated everything. And you've got Paul Rudd, who is fantastic in everything he does, to kind of be the side comedy while you're telling this story that seriously connects to the. Because the great thing about the OG Ghostbusters was it's a whimsical story told in a serious way. There are implications to this movie within that universe, and it seems like they've taken the same approach, which I think is the best way they could have done it.
Yeah, I think the style of humor from the original, that was the style of those guys in that era, was just so much different than what we saw really even in 2 and then definitely in the female Ghostbusters, that it just wasn't that same subtle humor that really got us with that. And this one found that again, in my opinion, and I think that the casting was perfect for that, with a Paul Rudd being that kind of comedy that he can deliver. Fits that mold of what the original Ghostbusters was. I personally liked the female Ghostbusters a good bit. It just, to me, wasn't Ghostbusters because of all the things you just said. If they had made that movie a continuation film where these new Ghostbusters were taught to be Ghostbusters by the old ones, and this is a continuation of story, I probably would have liked it even more. But still, the style of humor was so much different in that one. It was, it was the Bridesmaid style of humor, the director being the same guy. It was that punchline kind of joke humor. And that wasn't what made Ghostbusters what it was. It was very subtle. The fact that Yes, Have Some is a quote from a movie that we remember and think is funny, when it really didn't play that much into the story, really wasn't a joke in its own right. It just is one of those moments that sticks with us from the original Ghostbusters. That is the whole basis of why that movie was so important and so special to us. And this one hit it all out of the park, got all of the nostalgia you wanted, all of the fan service you wanted. And the people who think that's a bad thing, I don't get it. I'm the fan. I want that fan service. And then it had the story that continues from what we know in the past, with a family member of one of the old Ghostbusters as the main character, and going forward with the story of what they did in New York in the 80s, which is why it was so great.
Yeah. Again, it was subtle humor the way Bill Murray does it, which is fantastic, right? It's a movie that you could theoretically, if I told you the story, the concept of Ghostbusters, you could see it being a horror film, right?
Yeah.
You could see it being a horror film, but
and the way it was originally written was kind of more of that. And Harold Ramis had to say, Dan, that's a little boring. Let's make it funny.
Yeah. And I'm glad he did, right? Yeah. You could tell that story is a horror film. The way that this one felt to me, and again, I still haven't seen it, so I'm really only working off of trailers, and really I'm avoiding reviews, because it's one of the few movies since Endgame that I'm I'm excited about this. It almost seems like this is a little more of the concept of, this is almost like Resident Evil, except the Ghostbusters. And I'm here for it. Now, I was interested to see, okay, you got this new generation, and Paul Rudd is obviously going to do Paul Rudd things, playing kind of the role of what Bill Murray was in the original Ghostbusters. And then you've got the other guys involved to some degree. We're going to provide you the comic relief in what is otherwise a Resident Evil video game that's breaking out in this small town. And that's a tough way to do comedy, right? I am no stand-up comedian, but I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy. And one of the toughest ways to do comedy, yet the funniest when you get it right, the most damaging when you get it wrong, is trying to tell jokes in serious situations. where there is death and destruction. It's why, a lot of people don't appreciate it, but like, I'm a big fan of dark humor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm a big fan of dark humor, mainly because it's hard to get right. But when you get it right, the payoff is incredible.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of what it felt like. And I could be wrong, but that's kind of what it felt like the overtones of this movie were going to be.
And it's almost, I mean, you want to, when you see the previews especially, think that Paul Rudd's going to be that catalyst of humor. These kids in this movie are hilarious, especially the girl who's playing the main character. And then Finn Wolfhard, who's from Stranger Things, Mike from Stranger Things, is phenomenal in this movie. The other kid that becomes friends with the little girl's phenomenal. The kids actually end up being probably the funniest part of the whole movie throughout the whole thing, which makes it even better. Great. And when you get that kind of humor from children and child actors and this kind of thing, and it still fits the mold of what we wanted from our love of the original, I think that's even more talented to pull off. And, Jason Reitman being the son of the original director, Ivan Reitman, he's also a fan. And I think that's what really came out in this movie, that he was one of us making the movie he's been wanting to see for 30 years as well. And he made it exactly how I think all of us were hoping it would be.
Yeah, I think that was the problem with the Star Wars movies. Like when they rolled out the first one, was it The Force Awakens?
Force Awakens.
When they rolled out the first one,
and I'll defend those movies to the death too. I love them all.
Well, you're cool, man. It's America. You're allowed to be wrong. You and Lonzo are on the same side there. I don't. And again, like, it's one of those things where if I'm an exec in Hollywood, my big take is, if we are going to make a movie that harkens back to a classic, you better have fans make that movie. Not like just random, like, don't get Robin Diddy off the mic and have them direct the movie.
Somebody who can make a movie.
But I'm saying movie directors who say, like, I loved that movie. Like, I have pictures of me as a kid as a Ghostbuster. Like, people who love the movie, because, and I think this was the problem, maybe more with the sequels, with episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Star Wars, was that the first one, made by J.J. Abrams, felt like a Star Wars movie, but one that you were going to need 2 more movies to tell the story you were trying to tell. And then they changed up directors. They brought in
and that I hate. I always hate that.
Yeah, they changed in directors. And the second movie created not a Star Wars movie. It was like, and again, I've been accused of being the bleeding heart liberal on the station, whatever. But like, even I was looking at this movie going, you guys are trying so hard to tell all these stories on a social front. And I respect and appreciate the stories. But when you punch me in the face with them, you lose the artistic meaning. You want a story that it ends and then you go, not you go, oh, so we're doing this, huh? Like the whole premise of Rose and Finn. I'm like, you just demolished what you set up in the first story to tell to punch me in the face with these overt themes and storylines. So when you brought Abrams back for episode 9, he didn't have a chance to make the movie. He had to fix everything wrong with 8 within 9, and then he had like 10 minutes left over to try to finish that story.
And that's fair. I get that. I get that gripe completely. And I hated that they were doing that. I didn't like that they did that for all the Harry Potter movies, even though I get that, you don't want to make 8 movies. You probably want to do other projects in between and not have to make every single one of them. But if you had the continuity of director, I think it would have been a better story from start to finish. I also think that the fan angle that we brought up is a big deal. And JJ might have been a fan, but you can tell if you look at his 2 different reboots of space movies, which one he was a fan of the most growing up, because that Star Trek reboot was awesome.
It was fantastic.
And it was such a genius level of how you're going to reboot while going forward and then flip it. Like, I thought that was a really cool way they did it, especially with number 2, with the Wrath of Khan retelling in a whole different way.
Which was fantastic.
I loved everything they did. And I don't think he had as much of a passion for Star Wars as he did for Star Trek. And I think that kind of shows to the big fans. And I think that's what really hurt in the long run. And then again, going to Rian Johnson for a movie that changed the whole story and then going back was hurtful too. I still enjoyed them all because I don't find them to be as serious as a lot of people, I guess. I just want them for entertainment value. And I was like, it's Star Wars, I'm happy. But Eric on the stream also just nailed it as well. That's why Favreau and Dave Filoni with Star Wars are so good, because they are us. They are fans, and they are superstar directors who know what they're doing.
Yeah. Again, like, I think if I'm an exec making anything attached to an old classic, whether it's Jaws, if they were to remake Psycho, if they were to remake another Star Wars or Star Trek, which Disney's got Star Wars, so you're getting a few thousand more. I think the first thing I'd ask anybody that's a candidate to be a director is, I'm hitting them with one of those online 50 questions that only real Star Wars fans can answer, and if they don't go fitty, they're out.
Yeah.
Right?
Tell me this: if Nerd Culture had a stadium, would Favreau be the first statue out front? Right now, maybe Stan Lee already, but after
I would
Stan
go
Lee,
Stan Lee, Favreau, Will Wheaton.
it's just everything Favreau's done from Marvel over to Star Wars, just unreal.
I put Feige up there.
Yeah, Russo brothers.
The Wachowskis would go up there.
Yes.
I think that'd probably be like my
Ivan and Jason Reitman.
Yeah, I put them
with the Ghostbusters.
Yep.
Just to round that back.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be the statues leading.
What a
into the
hero!
stadium.
First of all, we as kids of our generation, we loved the guy as Rudy's fat friend, and then he becomes like the greatest movie guy of all time in our lifetime. Like that's awesome.
All right. 844-477-3776. Let's do this. Let's run to a break. When we come back here in just a minute from right now, we got to make picks. It's rivalry week, y'all. We got to make some picks. We'll do them when we come back on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate.
Yep, even Elf. Elf might be tonight's
Steven
movie.
said, Diddy, are you a stout guy?
Yes, I am.
Are
That's the beers that I'm talking about being so expensive are
stouts,
stouts. Yeah, they're stouts from 8th State that are world renowned.
See, I'm not a stout guy. I'm not anti-stout. Like if I walk in and that's what you got, I'm going to drink it. But I've never gone for a stout before I will go for like a red ale. Reds are always at my top. Lagers are the easiest go-to beer for me.
Well, the lager world is blowing up again.
Yes, it is.
Crispy boys for life.
Yes, it is. I'm a lager guy first. I'm a amber and red guy second. I don't love wheat beers. I've tried. It's not my bag.
I like Hefeweizens. Not huge on a lot of wheats.
Yeah.
Other than that, some are good. Like Florida Cracker, the wheat beer from Cigar City, I like when it's hot out.
Yeah.
That's one you can just crush. But I'm not huge. Usually just Hefes. But the stouts too, there's a whole different, same with sours. There's like two different worlds of both stouts and sours. Sours especially, there's the kettle world and then like the fruited smoothie sour world. And 8th State does both, but their smoothie fruited ones are the ones I want. It's like juice with alcohol. And it's insane. I'm not big on the kettle ones. I get that like weird burn in the back of my mouth, in the corner of your jaw, like that little tingle. I hate that. And then I'm not big on like the Saison farmhouse world either, which I know that's a huge following in 8th State. Birds Fly makes amazing beers.
Yep.
I drink all of their IPAs, all of their lagers. I just can't personally palate the Saisons in the farmhouses.
I can do a Saison. I don't do sours at all. Now in fairness, like I don't like sour. Like sour any flavor. Sour repels me. Like Sour Patch Kids.
I don't like sour candy, that's why I never thought I'd like the sour beers. But again, like places like 8th State, there's like Treehouse up in Boston. There's I think it's called Trillium is one.
Trillium,
and,
we went there.
Deviant.
Yep.
They all make those smoothie sours, and a few around here have started doing it as well. That's the style of sour I'll drink still, but the other one, not so much. And stouts, there's like the basic stout or a milk stout or not much added to it. And then there's like pastries that just taste like liquid dessert.
Yeah.
And 8th State does the liquid desserts, and that's what I love.
Abita down in New Orleans.
Love their Andy Gator.
The Andy Gator's good. They make, so my favorite beer they make, it's available 3 months a year, is their Strawbita, which is just strawberry beer.
I drink that all the time.
Fantastic. Like when it comes out.
It almost tastes like it's like if Captain Crunch, the berries was all strawberry.
Yeah.
It has that like almost cereal because it's the wheat to
I
it.
love Strawbita. When Strawbita comes out, and I don't know if you can get it here or not because I didn't see it last year. Doesn't mean no.
Place downtown that has all Abita beers. Lost
Really?
Cajun. Oh, there's one over on Pleasantburg or Pelham as well.
Okay.
Because they do. It's a New Orleans food place.
Oh,
Cajun
Lost
food
Cajun?
place. Yeah, Lost
See,
Cajun.
I
And they have all
need to be able to
Abita.
buy the 6-packs of it.
So they
because-
almost Greens, Total Wine, the
Let me have it.
big beer places.
So when I lived in Fort Walton, I was friends with the GM of the Publix around the corner from my house. And when they get Strawbita, he'd call me and I would literally buy a pallet. I would go in there and drop $500 and have it for the year.
I'm obsessed with it. I love it.
All right, let's run through and make some picks for the weekend. Want to get into these last week. awful week for Rob Brown. 5-9 last week. We pick against the spread, Diddy. This is not straight up, fortunately. We went 5-9 against the spread. Lonzo went 6-8. I have dropped. I started off the year for the first 6 weeks of the year, Diddy. I was picking at almost 80%. Since then, I have dropped my overall percentage back down to 53.8%. I was 80% to start, and I'm about 30% since then. Not going well for your boy. Last week took Miami minus 8.5, 26-38 winners over Tech. Got a dub there. Lonzo took an L. I took Ohio State was an 18.5-point favorite. I thought Michigan State would at least stay in that game.
So did everybody. Let's be honest.
Not Lonzo didn't. He went Ohio State. Walks out with a dub. Sometimes they do. Florida 8.5-point favorites over Mizzou. They lost outright. So an L for me, a dub for no Texas, West Virginia. Every week that I pick West Virginia and Lonzo is not, I have won. I'm like 8-2 picking West Virginia this year. It's the only reason I put them on the list.
So I need to pick West Virginia so that I can win.
If you pick West Virginia, I will lose. Big Force was at Clemson. Clemson, a 4.5-point favorite. I took Clemson. Lonzo took Wade. I got a dub. He got an L. Oregon at Utah. 2.5-point favorite. Smoked Oregon. 38-7. Both of us, the double L there. Georgia Tech and Notre Dame minus 17.5, and I took the Irish to cover. They did 55-0 blowout of Grambling. Auburn at USC. Auburn was a 7.5-point favorite in this one. I thought that was a lot of points. So did both took Auburn to cover or to outright win, but South Carolina to be inside of a touchdown. South Carolina said, "Screw you both. We'll do it ourselves."
That's right.
Took the outright win, 21-17. Arkansas was at Bama. Both thought Bama would cover. I don't know why in retrospect. One of those dumb picks, a 22.5-point spread. Arkansas makes it a one-score game, 35-42. They're Baltimore at Chicago in the NFL. Baltimore, a 4.5-point favorite. They won by 3. I took the L. So took the dub. Chicago, Green Bay, 1.5-point favorites over Minnesota. Joe Giglio warned us. He said, "This is an upset in the making, boys." I went against him. I should have listened to the expert. We both took an L in that one. Miami, 2.5-point favorites over New York Jets. They beat them 24-17, double win. They're Washington, Carolina. 8.5 favorite in this one at home, and they lost in that one outright. The double L's there. Dallas and Kansas City. Kansas City, 2.5-point favorites. I honestly thought Dallas, I was picking Kansas City. They had one good week. Nope, they're back. Kansas City wins that one 19-9, keeps Dallas entirely out of the end zone. And L for me, a dub for Lonzo in that one. Let's go to this week, shall we? Let's go to this week and take a look at what we have lined up. Egg Bowl. Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Will alternate picks on this, Diddy. Ole Miss at Mississippi State. The Bulldogs at home at a 1.5-point favorite. Meaning Vegas thinks Ole Miss is just a little bit better with the 3 points for Mississippi State at home. The Fighting Lane Kiffins taking on the Fighting Sky Pirates. Who you got in this one, Diddy?
This is our Thanksgiving game, too. So this is the good one. It's a primetime game on Thanksgiving for these guys. Man, it's tough to pick against Ole Miss this year because they've looked pretty impressive in a lot of ways. Mississippi State's had a couple big showings, but also kind of laid some eggs. So I'm going to have to go with Lane Kiffin, and I think they easily, win this game. They win this one.
I got Ole Miss winning this one as well. Hard to pick against the Lane train this year. Cincinnati at ECU, 14.5-point favorites. I am going with Cincinnati for one reason alone. Cincinnati's in the Final Four, and now what happens to them from here? They control, kinda. But in order to control, they got to dominate. I can't imagine they're not. Listen, they've played down to their talent. This is a game that they would play down to, but they have the added pressure of, I think in a few weeks, it would have been easy to think, well, we're just not going to get in. They're not going to. Well, you're in now. You got to go make noise. Whatever Notre Dame wins by, they got to double that, and I think they do. I'll take Cincinnati to cover 14.5, Diddy.
Man, I got to go against it. I think Cincinnati wins this game, but my experience with the American Athletic Conference football and the team that should be the team that puts everybody else out of the conference, they always seem to play down in these games, and this is kind of a trap. You have your ranked one-loss Houston team waiting for you next week in the conference championship game. You now have the added pressure of having to make a show out of it, so the committee keeps you in. And we heard their coach even mention, not just 2 weeks ago, how maybe we think we got in our own heads hearing our name so much and started playing a little sloppy. Well, who's not going to get in their own head after seeing themselves at number 4, the first AAC team, group of 5 team to finally reach that top 4 in a ranking? I think they win this game. I don't think they win by 14, and I think they shoot themselves in the foot and lose their playoff because of it.
We go opposite picks for opposite reasons. Ohio State -8.5 on the road at Michigan. They got to win by 9 or better. You're up, D-Train.
Ohio State covers.
Yeah, I think so. I was throwing that one up here to see if anybody wanted to take the beat.
I want the chaos. I'd love for Harbaugh to tell him to get off the shine going. Against Ohio State, they can happen.
DJ Stroud's putting it together. I'll take Ohio State to cover 8.5 as well. Here's a fun one. Georgia is on the road at Georgia Tech this weekend. 35.5 point favorites in this one. I'm absolutely taking Georgia to cover that. Notre Dame and Georgia's better than that.
Yeah.
Now, the only fear I have is, does Georgia lay off to save up for Alabama in the SEC championship game? If so, they'll only win by like 27 or 30.
Yeah.
But I'm going to think Kirby Smart brings the dogs to play out early. I'll take them to cover.
Yeah, it's a weird pick. You want to say, if they're going to burn the clock, run it down, keep it close. Who knows? You've seen Georgia Tech in the past always do that and keep the game way closer than it should be when the team's way better, lose by 20 instead of 50. I'm not saying that this year. They didn't do it last week against Notre Dame. Like you said, Georgia, far better of a football team. Nobody's touching them. I don't even think Alabama touches them in a week. So, yeah, it's an easy cover even with that massive spread.
Notre Dame's at Stanford. Notre Dame 19.5 point favorites on the road at the Cardinal that knocked off Oregon in the same stadium a handful of weeks. Diddy, 19.5 points.
I don't like 19.5, but I think it's that hook get me. But I'm going to take, I'll take Stanford points. We'll lose by 17.
You think Stanford covered 19.5 points?
Yeah, a big spread for a road favorite.
Same reason I'm taking Cincinnati. I'm taking Notre Dame to cover. They have to. They do not have a choice.
Thing is, though, if Cincy struggles and still wins, if Notre Dame wins by 17, I mean, by the old BCS standards, that's a blowout, right? Yep. So it's still could jump them.
To me, the definition at this point in the season of an impressive win is one where you cover the spread and then some, right?
Fair.
And Notre Dame's got to cover the spread and then some. I'll take them to cover up. Bedlam, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. The Cowboys, 4.5 point favorites in this one at home. Diddy, listen, I got a buddy. Scooty. Yeah. He came to me preseason and he said, Rob Brown, the Cowboys are for real. And I said, okay, Scooty. All right, buddy. And then in week 4, he said, hey, we're for real. And I said, okay, buddy. And they lost to Iowa. And I thought, I told you, Scooty. And then they have been racing since that point. Oklahoma still trying. I mean, they've looked a little better since the change away from Spencer Rattler. But Oklahoma State is, I think, going to run and run and run and run. I think they win by a touchdown. Scooty, it's for you, big dog. I'm taking the Cowboys.
What is the on this one?
4.5 favorites for the Cowboys.
Oh, I
hate that line.
It's a terrible. Big 12 has done a great job, just like the Pac-12 recently, of beating themselves out of a playoff. And I think it happens again. I think Sooner goes in, upsets the Cowboys. I'm about 56, I think years old. And have an epic breakdown in the post-game conference. And that's it. Like I just, for some reason, it's a weird rivalry. And I feel like it always swings the way you don't think it will with Oklahoma State. And I think that's going to happen again. Sooners will ruin the chance for the Big 12 to get in because they're not jumping from 10 up to 4.
I don't think you're wrong. Alabama, 19.5 point favorites on the road at an Auburn team that lost to South Carolina last week. But Emma was a big favorite against Arkansas, and it ended up being a one-score game. Hey, it's the Iron Bowl, baby. There is not, I have been to one of these, there is not a more tenuous relationship in all of college football than Auburn, Alabama. I don't like to give the people of Alabama credit for a damn thing, all right, because they just ripped off all the good things about Louisiana to make Alabama. However, this game is, I think this game's got a chance to be better. I'm going to take Auburn inside. I think Alabama wins. I'm going to take Auburn inside of 19.5.
And I'm going to go the opposite for the same reason you went with both Notre Dame and Cincinnati. Alabama dropping to number 3 will light a fire underneath today. From today till that team is going to be whipped into shape, put in the position to be ready to make a statement so that if Ohio State wins big this weekend, the committee has to still consider Alabama at 2 so that they have that higher ranking and look better. And that way, if they can knock off Georgia next week, they're number 1 going into the playoff and can get Cincinnati or whoever at that 4 spot.
I respect that. Let's go to Florida State at Florida. The Gators head coachless in this spot after Dan Mullen was let go. Florida State creeping towards better throughout the year. But had a dog fight. They were up by 23-6 over Boston College, or 26-3 off Boston College. Let Boston College put a few touchdowns on the board to make it 26-23, but they've won a couple of gutouts, including over the Miami Hurricanes a couple weeks back. Florida State on the road at the University of Florida, -2.5-point favorite. Look, I don't know, because the head coach gets fired. One of two things happen. Either the boys unify and play the game of their life in the next one, or the team just completely falls apart. Because it's Dan Mullen, and one of his wide receivers, active on the team, tweeted, "I will help him move." Now, he didn't say why. It's because he's really friends with him and wants to help his coach, or because he was ready to see him go. I'm going to pick the latter. I'm going to go on a limb here. I don't love this pick for this line. I'm going to say FSU's inside of maybe win the game outright of Florida.
Ooh, you're going that way. I don't take that as an opposite of some relief on that side in the locker room. I do think Florida missed a huge opportunity here to make, even because the coach doesn't actually call plays. You make Steve Spurrier the interim coach,
honorary coach for the day,
so that his last ever game will be against FSU in the Swamp. It's in the Florida colors. It's it's so much better of an ending than he had here, just kind of walking away with his tail between his legs. So it would have been really cool to see, and I think that would have inspired him as well. I really think they get this game, and I think it really stinks for FSU and Norvell that he needs that win. He needs that turn. He needs to push things into the future. But I think that this team is relaxed without Mullen. I think it changes the atmosphere in that locker room, and I think they come out with something to prove, saying, hey, whoever's next, we can play. It was him, not us, and I think the Gators win.
So Diddy's got the Gators winning and covering up 2.5. And finally, the Palmetto Bowl, 11.5 points. For the Clemson Tigers. They are favored by 11.5 in this one. Look, Diddy, it's a coin flip game for me as far as the spread. I think Clemson's obviously favored for a reason, but I think it's a coin flip because we got to figure out what the Clemson team shows up and what South Carolina team shows up. If it's a good Clemson team, it doesn't matter what happens with Carolina. They win the game. If it's the bad Clemson team and the good South Carolina can win this game. If it's the bad Clemson team and the bad South Carolina team, Clemson wins the game, but it's ugly as hell.
Yeah.
I'm going to go right down the split. I'm going to say SC covers 11.5.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I want to see how I'm a fan. It's really tough to think they're going to win, even though this is the best chance they've had in more than half a decade coming into this game. But 11.5 is a big spread when you look at how bad offensively overall Clemson has been throughout the season. You have seen South Carolina struggle against good defenses, so that's going to be a struggle for them. I like what you've been saying all week, what Corey Diaz told us earlier in the week. I maybe not as low of a scoring game as Corey said. I think he said 12-9. I think this might be like 17-14 Clemson. So I would even bet the under on this thing at 43 because I don't think either of these offenses get the ball moving much at all in this football game.
Hey, look, Clemson's put up 40 in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah. But not South Carolina's defense has been pretty good.
Yeah, and one of those games was against UConn. So
exactly.
Let's go real quick. No breakdowns on this. Just give me the pick on the line, Diddy, so we can get back on the clock. Las Vegas at Dallas. Cowboys a 7.5-point favorite in this one.
Cowboys cover.
I'm going to think Cowboys cover too. By the way, this team's just collapsing around them. Tennessee's at New England. The Patriots 2.5-point favorites. I'm going to think Patriots cover over Tennessee. It's favored last week. So they waived Adrian Peterson today.
Yeah.
They don't have a running back at this point. Give me the Patriots to cover at home.
Yeah, home pick, but I think
the old Sucker Bowl, the Texans, they won a big one this past weekend. Got off the snide with a win over said Tennessee team. A little bit of a shock there. I'm going to go Texans in this one. People want to, what do you call it when you win 2 in a row?
2 in a row, but when you win 3 in a row, that's what we call a winning streak.
And believe it or not, boys, it has happened before.
Yes. What was there?
2.5 in favor of the Texans. Got a late 2.5 to take the Texans. I'm taking the cover.
2.5 is enough points to go with the points. Yeah, Texans cover.
Texans cover. Atlanta at Jacksonville. How about this line? The Falcons are favored. 1.5. A point in the hood, Kitty.
Duval.
Duval!
Jags win. Swimming.
Oh, what?
Boy.
Oh, what? I don't think I'm a Falcon. I will rub sunshine all day. And finally, let's wrap it up. We got a showdown. Carolina 1.5 point favorite over the Dolphins. I'm taking Panthers.
Ooh. Improve something, or we're done with them.
Oh, yeah, that is correct. I said last week I wasn't betting on the Panthers anymore. By the way,
I changed up at Sunday.
the smart parents who asked me earlier how if I'm picking 53%, am I making money? Because I pick 16 games on the radio. I bet like 3 to 4 a week. And I bet the ones that I'm like, that's good. All my if I was giving you guys if I was showing you my audit for my actual bets, I'd be like 82% on the games I'm actually picking.
You mean you're not dropping $10,000 a week?
I'm not making $10,000. Are you kidding me? Let's take a break. Twitter, abbreviated version to wrap up the week when we come back on the Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate.
Let's hope. How much time we got? Oh, yeah, we're good. 1, 2, 3. Yeesh.
Thanksgiving Day, abundant sunshine, low 60s. A slight chance for a shower early Friday, but dry into the weekend. I'm meteorologist Michael here on ESPN Upstate. Right now, it's 54.
We'll have 1 minute.
This guy just said, goodbye to the World Series of Poker at the Rio. Since my first visit in 2009, I'd estimate I've spent 1.5 to 2 years of my life actually inside these walls. And listen to this line that he sends in a tweet to wrap up his time at the Rio. It's where I won my bracelet, lost my virginity, met my first wife, and met the woman I'd leave her for before meeting my second wife. So many memories. Golly.
That's fantastic. Oh, Lord.
Wow.
The question I saw earlier. What's the better holiday sport day between Christmas and Thanksgiving? And NFL Thanksgiving or NBA Christmas?
I love the NBA, but it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving because I said that. I was like, even if the games are bad, I watch all of them.
Yeah.
I might watch one of the NBA games, and it's more because I'm really lazy on Thanksgiving and I'm sitting in front of the TV all day. Whereas Christmas, you know, you're moving around, you're doing things, and I don't pay as much attention. And usually I'm at somebody else's house. So, like, I can't even get them to keep the NBA on.
I'm close.
So shot in history.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do here. Scrap Twitter. Scrap Twitter if you don't mind. If it's not too late. I'm going to do something else instead.
Regular rejoin.
Non-surgical regenerative options are here. 864-448-3772. Are you hiring? Of course, every employer is. If your business is hiring, how can you access hundreds of thousands of hires who are potential candidates? Employers can contact us today at upstatejobs@espnupstate.com. That's upstatejobs@espnupstate.com. With just one spray of Microban 24, your hard surfaces are...
The commercial always makes me think we're coming back. Like, it sounds like a sounder to come back.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait. Oh, no, okay, we're good. At least I noticed we finally got rid of the nut butter commercial. Which so many times I fell out.
The other day, and he plays this commercial with a jingle attached to it, and it's for a an ED pill, and the jingle at the end is like, "Get up now so you can get up later tonight." And played it for me. I was like, oh my God. It was so good.
That's terrible.
Get up now so you can get up.
Yeah, that whole time that I was like covering / auditioning before you came in, I don't think there was one show I did where me and Diesel didn't giggle every time I heard creamy nut butter. We're just like, like stop it.
I think it was playing right when I got here. And I think the first time I played, I looked at him like, are we serious?
Oh, it killed me.
Steven says, Robbie, need to jump on the stout train. It's the big boy beer of choice. I mean, that's, I don't.
Do you like bourbon?
I love bourbon.
Then you need to try these barrel-aged stouts. Okay. Because it's a lot of barrel flavor to it. So you get a lot of bourbon.
Double Dead Man. You ever had Double Dead Man? No. I'm trying to remember who. I want to say it's Rogue Brewing.
Oh, Dead Guy.
Yeah. It was called this Double Dead Guy Ale. Is aged in bourbon barrels, and it's one of the few beers that I've actually spent like money on.
Yeah, these especially the non-adjuncted stouts that are barrel aged, it's just a lot of bourbon flavor.
Yeah,
it's really, really good.
So I'm down with that.
I actually went to Thomas Creek. It's like you took a sip of Four Roses and then took a bite out of a piece of chocolate.
Nice.
It's super,
I love Four
super
Roses.
good. Yeah.
Four Roses is way up on my list. Four Roses is arguably the best like price point meets good beer.
Yeah.
Woo. All right, way off the clock, Silver Scrap and Twitter. I wanted to say two things. First off, again, if you missed it earlier, we lost a not just a valued member of the Odyssey staff, but a member of our Odyssey family, Mr. Robert Martin, yesterday. Robert, it was an absolute pleasure to have known you, an absolute pleasure to have worked with you, an absolute pleasure every time I got the chance to just sit on that couch in your office and vent. Robert Martin, a great man, and you will be dearly missed in this building and out of it. Rest well, my friend. We will see you on the other side. And to you, our listeners, as we prepare for Thanksgiving, thank you guys. We oftentimes, I think, can get caught up in the minutia of this job and take it for granted. I want you to know today I do not. Thank you guys. If it wasn't for you, Diddy and I would not be able to come in here and goof off and have fun doing this thing that we love to do so very much. You guys give us your time, your energy, your effort to listen and be a part of the show and interact with us. And we can never thank you enough for that. So as we prepare for Thanksgiving tomorrow, allow me on behalf of Diddy and Mark Ryan and Diesel and Lonzo and everybody here at ESPN Upstate to extend our heartfelt thanks to you for letting us do this ridiculous ass job and call it just that.
Yep.
We'll see you guys back here on Monday. Mark Ryan, actually, no, I lied. I'm in for another hour. What am I doing?
You're not going anywhere.
I meant every word of it, but I'll also see you back here in 2 minutes. The Rob Brown Show on ESPN Upstate. Later, brother. This heartfelt thank you. And then I'm like, oh, and also.
I'll be here another hour, y'all.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching on the stream. We'll see you all back here on Monday.